Good evening. I'm the Fit Lawyer ATL, and we are live, y'all. It's a Friday night. Okay, so I'm trying something new where we are going to go live on 3 platforms at once. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube because everyone was talking about this topic everywhere in all of my social media. So I'm like, let me just put it everywhere. So no matter where you're at, enjoy the show. Oh man, let me see. Okay, so all for always, forever, for life. She said she can't answer the poll because she doesn't know the story. Well, sis, I'm gonna break it all down to you. I am going to go through it all from beginning to where we are now because everybody's talking about this, right? Like allegedly, Anthony Edwards wants to pay all of his child support up front. For 18 years. Ninja say, here's 216 months of child support. Leave me alone. So we gonna get into it. Chelsea Lynn NC says she's waited all day for this. It's going to be a good Friday night. Yeah, shout out Chelsea Lynn. I hope you all enjoy this show. I have an amazing guest that's going to join us. So if you all are just tuning in or just new to the show, because you come in, hit the like button, share the channel with your friends, because we're going to get into it tonight. All right. So I'm a 20-year criminal defense attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. Have my own practice here, the Adams Firm. We specialize in criminal defense and personal injury, right? However, I did start in family law at the same time I did criminal. Believe it or not, for 10 years, I practiced family law, but I had to let it go, y'all. It's just too shit like this. The clients that tell you they want to pay all their child support day one. I ain't got time for it. Like, it's too much emotions, too much drama. I like the criminal cases because, as I tell people, the facts stay the same, okay? These family cases, it all comes down to which parent plays the best game, and I don't have time for it. I just do not have time for it. For always, forever, for life. I'm so glad I'm finally getting notifications. Me too, sis, because I was like, man, how you keep missing me? You keep missing it. But she's here for the live. Chelsea Lynn says it's over child support. Yep, it's about child support. And custody and visitation is in there as well, although Ant-Man has said, I don't want anything to do with this child. And I just, that's the conversation, right? Like, is that right to just from day one say, I'm gonna be a deadbeat? Like, from day one, I don't want anything to do with this child. I don't ever want to see this child. I don't want to spend any time with this child. From day one, like, as a woman, I feel bad for her. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know. I'm gonna check the poll. See the poll. Do you think she's getting what she deserves? Because as word has it, he told her from day one he didn't want this child. However, do you think he's been a deadbeat? So let me know in the poll what you think. And I'm going to actually do another poll at the end once we actually go through all the documents. And then I'm going to see if y'all, if the opinion changes. All right, Miss CDB is in the house. Head up. What up? She says, what's up, Fit? This is my bestie here in Atlanta. Shout out. All right. Shan says genius because he hasn't gotten his max contract yet. So we're going to get into that. So I'm going to actually, let's hold that thought. Does it matter, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, this is a great idea. My child support is set now. He's only been in the league a few years. He is going to get a bigger contract, right? If he continues to be a great superstar. He's a 3-time NBA All-Star now. So his contract is going to get fatter. So he's like, let me go ahead and pay you early before I make the bank. But does that really work like that? And that's why I got this celebrity family attorney coming up. We're going to talk about it, all right? She's represented people such as Offset. Y'all know Offset and Cardi B are going through their divorce at the moment. She represents Simon Guadabe. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who is currently married to Portia from Real Housewives. She has represented AJ Terrell from the Falcons. So, like, the girl's coming with all the knowledge, and maybe we can get a little tea. So we gonna see. So I don't know if it works like that. So that's the kind of conversation, like, right? Was this a great idea? Is it even possible? Can you call the child support office and say, here's all my money up front? I don't know if it works that way, right? Because in Georgia, there's a law that says you have to financially support your child monthly. And if you don't make monthly payments, then the mom can go down and file for a child abandonment warrant. So if you give me all my money in August, come like November, can I say you haven't paid anything in 3 months? I mean, I'm sure to get dismissed when you come to court, but can I make your life hell? I just don't know. Ms. Renee says, hey, Fit Lawyer, I need a criminal law mentor. I'm a 3L with plenty of research and AI experience on Westlaw and Lexis. Okay, send me an email. My email is in my bio. Send me an email with your resume. I love that. All right, shout out Ms. Renee. See, look. You have not because you asked not. So definitely, y'all, if you're interested, let me know. Okay, Sharika Dorsey in the house says, hey, friend, I'm finally catching your live. Yes, shout out. All right, y'all, it's Friday night, like fit in the house. So we got 36 in the chat on YouTube. I'm not sure how many are watching us on Instagram or Facebook. I can't look. I'm not savvy enough to have all of those different screens up. So if you're on Facebook, Instagram, come over to YouTube so I can see your comment if you want to participate. But if you just want to sit where you are and vibe out, that's good too. All right. Let's see who else we got with us before we get into what exactly is going on. Shan says, I believe that's what 50 Cent did. If she agrees, he can. We're going to see. That's why I got this celebrity family attorney coming up so we can really know what is going on. All right. So for the backstory, for those of you all who don't know, Anthony Edwards is a basketball phenom. Okay. So he's from Atlanta, Georgia, hometown. All right. And in Atlanta, Georgia, well, first, he's 23 years old now, right? 6'4", 225. So, you know, we're going to pull up some pictures. So for people who are not familiar, you all can know who we're talking about. Let's see. Oh, where do I have their pictures? Y'all, one day this production is going to be super fast. Look at that. How many screens is that? What is going on? Okay, so clearly that's not right. Okay, so I don't think I did that correctly. Let me do something else. That was wild. What happened? All right, here we go. Yeah, that was some kind of new function. So let me see. Let me blow this screen up so y'all can see some pictures of the lovely couple. All right, so I can make this even bigger. So this is Mr. Anthony Edwards, and Ayesha Howard is the girl involved. She also has a baby with little baby. So we'll hear about that as we go through the documents. But yeah, she's a pretty girl. I don't follow her on IG. I know that she brands herself as a music artist and brand ambassador. And Anthony, after graduating high school, he played at Georgia, my alma mater. I did come out of Georgia in 2000. When did I come out of Georgia? 2001. Yeah, I was about to say 97, but that's high school. But yeah, so I came out of Georgia in 01. And so he played there for a year and was the overall number 1 draft pick in the 2020 NBA draft. So this is who we are talking about if you're not familiar with the lovely couple. All right. So that's who the topic of discussion is about. So Anthony Edwards is, I do not believe at the time that they were dating, and we'll get more into the docs, that he had any kids. It appears that he's had a lot of kids all at once. So all of these kids are really young. He has I think 3 different kids by 3 different women. We're going to talk about it. It's in the documentation. It's in the court paperwork. And I'll say the filings in Georgia really weren't all that juicy, right? We'll go into those. The ones in California, that's where the tea was. I was all on the California site earlier ordering these docs because I was like, where is the juice? That's where it was. All the text messages, because he asked her to get an abortion once he found out that she was pregnant, y'all, and actually paid her $100,000. Like, and she didn't get an abortion. So that's some of the issue, which is, you know, I don't agree with that. So, you know, to each his own, right? I just really feel like as a man, you have to protect yourself, right? Every time you sit down or lay down, every time you lay down with a female, right, it's a possibility that you can get her pregnant. That's just how science works. So it's not like she's out to trap you. I mean, listening to her filings, we're going to go through those. They had sort of like a relationship. So well, in her eyes. And ladies, that's a lot of times, that's how we get caught up with these ninjas, okay? They be having us in our feelings, right? They be having us thinking we special, thinking we mean something to their ass. And then when shit get real, they out, right? He's like, it's the minute she texted this man and told him that she was pregnant, he was like, I'm out. I don't want a baby. Go get an abortion immediately. Now, so we're gonna look at those documents. They are in it. Let me see what y'all talk about in the chat, because it's just a lot. Like, I feel bad for her. But at the same time, you know, men make choices every day, right? Not to be a part of their kids' lives. It's not something new, right? And if you're not married, even if you're married, a man can just walk away, right? Even a woman can walk away. She can have the child and decide not to be a mom. So this kind of thing happens every day. So I don't know how I necessarily feel. Do I think he's a deadbeat? I think any man that doesn't want to be in their child's lives, I feel like there's an issue. I don't care how the child was conceived, like, just to know that a piece of you is on earth and you don't want to be a part of that. That's weird to me. I don't support that. But some people feel like when he tells you, when you have an opportunity to make a decision, that he doesn't want to be a dad and you continue, then you're on your own and it's fair game. So that's what we're going to talk about. Like, how do y'all feel? Let me see in the chat. What are y'all talking about? Forever for always, forever for life. Is he the one that paid her in advance and said he doesn't want to hear from her again? Yep, this is him. Because if so, how can he determine how much child support to pay? The cost of things change. Exactly. Those are points, right? Because you can modify your child support order. In Georgia, you can do it every 2 years, or if there's like a big substantial change, you can have it modified. So if that's the case, then was this the smartest move? And guess what? His basketball career isn't guaranteed, right? He, in a couple years, I don't wish anything, but what if something happens and his stock goes down and he's not making as much? Are you gonna want some money back? Because you're definitely not getting it back. So I just don't, was it a smart move? Is it a smart move? We're gonna talk about it. Someone, Chelsea Lynn NC says, I know the girl don't got a job. The unemployment office can help with that, right? Well, allegedly, let Ant-Man tell it. That's Anthony Edwards' nickname. She was stripping at Magic City up until she found out she was pregnant, January 2024. So, Objection 43 says, woohoo, the fit ATL 2 nights in a row, right? So if you all missed the show last night, James and I went over Young Thug's probation revocation motion, because Fulton County was at it again. So be sure to go check it out if you missed it. Forever, for always, forever for life. Everybody hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Yeah, she says also, that's so sad. I agree. Like, I'm all kind of in the middle on this story, right? I'm in the middle of it. Shan says she knew this when she told him she was pregnant. He said that, and that's what happens when you out here messing with the kid. Now, that is true, right? Because I did say she's 36, and so he's 23. That's a big age gap. That's a she out here being, is that a cougar? I don't know. It's 13-year difference. I don't know if 36 is a cougar, right? That's auntie out here in these streets. I don't know. It's 36 or auntie. She just too old to be with him. Plain and simple. Like, and this is what happens. He's a child, right? Don't they say the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25? So, like, he's still a little childish. That's how I look at it. Like, I feel like he's being really childish, and I know that at some point in his life, things will change. He'll feel differently about it. So hopefully that's before the kids get old enough to know that daddy just straight up from day one, when he knew I was conceived, said, I don't want nothing to do with you. Like, that's hard for a child to grow up with. Patrick Humble said his feeling towards the child later down the line may change, hopefully, but the baby mama is making him sick right now. And see, that's all guys care about. They like, look, she getting on my nerves. I don't want nothing to do with her. So the child is attached to the mom, because for a lot of times, guys, they don't see a way in, right? You don't see a way that you can spend time with your child without the mom being involved, right? Especially when they're babies. So it's like, if baby mom is tripping, guys are like, shit, I'm out. Holler at me when you can talk. Like, I'll come back around when the child can call me on his own. Because y'all, sometimes these baby mamas do be tripping. I ain't gonna lie. Patrick, I definitely understand what you're saying. Because like I say, I did this for 10 years. So I would represent the moms that would just make it so hard for the dads to be involved. So sometimes, sometimes it's the baby mamas that kind of drive that wedge, and then sometimes niggas just ain't shit. Okay. So we got to keep it real, right? So just day one, before your child even enters this world, she could just be your little, I mean, she's a piece of you. How can you just be like, I don't want to have anything to do with it? I just don't understand. Shout out Miss QT Pies, a member in the house. She says, hey everyone, welcome to the live. Yeah, it's just, I just don't get it. Mello says, oh, shout out Mello. She says, that's my attorney. Yes. Love it. Thanks for joining the live, sis. Yeah. So if you all are watching it once again on Facebook or Instagram, I cannot see the comments. Why? Because I am not savvy enough to have 3 different screens up. I already got 3 monitors, right, running this show. I don't have all the other screens up. So if you want to come over and be a part of the chat, come over on YouTube, The Fit Lawyer ATL, and you can jump into the chat with us. If not, enjoy the show where you are. We are about to get into these documents and just really see how everything unfolded, okay? So Anthony not allegedly, because DNA was proven December 23rd, 2024. Merry Christmas, like you the daddy, okay? So that is when he found out about the child being his. But how did this all get started? So Anthony Edwards, as I stated before, I told you all he's from Atlanta. So he has a home in Atlanta. He has been drafted to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he plays for them, and he travels with the team. But off season, his home is in Atlanta. Hey, Happily Angry Lawyer says, hey, best friend. If you all, this is who I was on the show with last night talking about the YSL stuff. So if you missed it, go check it out. James is an amazing attorney out in California. He got sucked into the YSL drama watching on YouTube, and he has just been amazing finding errors and tearing Fulton County up like every day. So you can follow him on Twitter. If one of the mods can drop his YouTube channel in the chat. Happily Angry Lawyer, shout out, best friend. So yes, Rakisha McNeil, shout out, sis. Welcome to the live. She says Jim in the chat. So, shout out, sis. Pills, potions, and poisons in the house. The child looking at the mama too, like she was a lost 40 stripping, and he was 23. Yes, that's young though. She might have been his first, right? He was so young, right? Still smelling like Similac. Shout out Pills, Potions, and Poisons. A lot of people in the chat are from the Lead Attorneys chat, y'all. We love Lead. Shout out Lead. I've been in communication with him. He is amazing. So my YouTube mentor. So y'all give a shout out to Lee. Also, if you can drop his channel in the chat. Sounds like Ashley. Hey, sis. Love this lip. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all, all the friends in the chat. So Ashley and I used to stay next door to each other. She has an amazing YouTube channel as well that she's starting. So if you all can, Ashley, drop your channel in the chat and I'll pin it up so they can follow. So, all right, y'all, let me get into this. Okay, y'all coming in. Let me get into it because, people on YouTube be like, hurry up. Spill the tea, sis. You take it too long. And guess what? Guess who is joining me? I have my celebrity divorce family attorney in the house, Onyema Farrey.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
Okay. Let me tell you, this is the first time I've ever gone live.
Like really?
Yes. It is so cool to see what happens, I guess, backstage. I don't know what you call it. So it felt like I was coming on stage. So I'm backstage like, okay, I'm ready.
Yes. Hey, I'm so glad you are here. So yes. So the chat, let me introduce her. This is Onyema Farrey. She has her own law firm in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a family law attorney. How long you been practicing now? Like
this is going to make it 15 years.
15 years. Okay, so this is an OG in the family law game. All right, y'all. So this is going to be amazing. So she got all the tea. She has represented, as I told you all early, Offset. Him and Cardi B are going through a divorce now. Simon. Now, how do you pronounce Simon's last name? Is it Guadabe?
It's Guabadia.
Okay, let me get that right. So Simon Guabadia, she's representing him. He is currently going through a divorce for Portia Williams from the Real Housewives. She also has represented AJ Terrell from the Falcons. She's represented some people I can't mention. She's represented some other NFL players. B.O.B. Who else, girl, that we can talk about? Because I don't want to.
Way back in the day, Apollo.
Oh
You know, a
yeah,
lot of
follow
people,
Nida when his divorce from
yes,
Phaedra. Yeah.
a
So
lot of
okay, so
people
this is
don't
real
know
deal.
that.
So look, this is we in Atlanta, Georgia. Black Girl Magic. It's a lot of amazing attorneys in Atlanta. And I just, as soon as this kind of story came out and everybody was chatting this week about it, I texted her and I was like, wait a minute. Is that even possible? And I was like, you know what, matter of fact, come on a show with me Friday night so we can talk about it. So y'all give shout out to Attorney Farrey, put her name in the chat, and we about to
Thank
get into it.
you.
Girl, you came just in time because I got all the dots. You know,
Okay,
I was busy
yes.
today.
Let me tell you, I had already heard all the drama and everything going on because people always send me information like that, right? Because they know I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, people know what I do. So I'm always getting news in my DMs. And so when I was seeing the news, I'm like, lump sum up front, 18 years. I'm like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. But then when you sent me the documents today, I said, no. I said, I have not heard any of those details regarding what mom did. And I know we're going to go through them
Yeah.
because I certainly have an opinion. But just to, add a little bit more details to those that are watching. As Tiffany mentioned, my name is Onyema Farrey. I've been doing this for 15 years. I do exclusively family law. So I handle all the juicy details and cases. So that includes your divorce, your child support, custody. I represent a lot of fathers because in Georgia, it's very difficult for fathers to automatically have custody. They have to, file a petition with the court to establish them as a father. And we're going to talk about that too with Anthony. So I handle a lot of cases regarding that. My niche has kind of carved around fathers. I do represent mothers too, but I tell people I always love representing the underdogs because I can represent mamas in my sleep. I can get them custody, child support, whatever you want. I got you because the way that the laws are structured in Georgia is just, it really just kind of makes it easy for a mom to step into court and get what she's asking for, right? So I like a challenge, and representing men really gives me a challenge, and it really helps me empower fathers because a lot of fathers, they feel like, oh man, the court system is against me, or the mama's going to get custody, or I'm going to get hit over the head with child support. So a lot of times they don't fight. They just lay down and take it, i.e. Anthony. It doesn't look like he's fighting the child support. They don't fight. They just go with it. They give up. They don't try to get custody. They don't try to get parenting time. They don't try to get fair child support. And let me tell you, that's why I'm here, to make sure these daddies are getting their fair shake in court. So that's what a lot of people know me for. So I've been doing this, as I mentioned, 15 years. I love it. It is a lot of drama, but I enjoy it. I think every day is always something different, and that's what keeps me involved. That's what keeps me excited. And then the cherry on top is when the children, benefit from it too, right? Because that's why we're doing it, is for the children. So, but anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be spending this Friday night with you because this is some good tea to get into. Thanks for having me.
Yes, girl. When I was digging through the documents, I was like, okay, so because the case is pending in Georgia and California. The Georgia docs was kind of, they were a little dry, but them California documents, that's what he was.
Let me tell you, I was surprised at all the details in those documents. Down to all the women that he was with and how he met them and what he did and how he paid them off, and then her staying in a back house and renting a room, and some random person saying, oh yeah, she lived here, but it's a lot. And so I don't know if it's because California is, like the celebrity state. And that's where people like the media and, the public, they go to get their documents and details. So it may be because attorneys are trying to posture the case, like trying to tell their client's side through the documents. So I really think that's what it was. That's why they put all those dirty details in there, because they're like, okay, look, we can't come on the Fit Lawyer Live and talk about our client's case, but what we're going to do is we're going to put these details in these documents and these public records, so that way y'all can read it from there. So
exactly, and that's exactly what's happening, because a lot of blogging over court cases and everything has really picked up recently. People are really interested in what's going on. So even up with the Diddy case, even with Cassie's lawsuit, we saw it there, like with the trigger warning and all the details. People, you want to spill the tea these days? It's in the court docs.
It really is. It really is. And and I respect, bloggers and news sources and social media and what they do. But if you really want the facts, you have to look in the court documents because, some of the stuff that's floating out there about my clients, I'll be scrolling and I'm like, this is crazy and this is weird and this is not
Isn't that
true.
Weird? Okay, so we gonna save some of that. Yes. So y'all, because we're gonna get into some of her clients' tea after we get through going through.
We'll see, because we might have to come back on a different live. We might not pour out. We can't pour all the tea in one sitting.
You're right. You're right on that. You're right. We got to spread it out, right? Sprinkle it on them. Shout out to Kay Smith in the house, gifted 5 Fit Lawyer ATL memberships. Thank you so much, Kay Smith. If you got a Fit Lawyer ATL membership from Kay Smith, please thank him in the chat. Thank him. Is it a him or her? I don't know. With the K, probably a female. I don't know. But anyway, thank him in the chat if you got a Fit Lawyer ATL membership. Shout out. We are going to be doing a members only live soon because guess what, y'all? I need help with the back of wall. I don't know what to put behind me. So I'm going to let the members help me decide that. So, all right. So without further delay, we are going to get into these docs. So what I want to present first are the documents from Anthony, because the case started in Georgia.
It did. And I thought that was interesting that it started in Georgia. So while you're getting that up, the child wasn't born until October 2024. So I will say, and we'll talk from both sides, right? We'll talk from mom's side, we'll talk from dad's side. But I thought it was interesting that dad actually filed first. Anthony filed his documents first on September 25th, 2024. And so the fact that he even took the initiative to file and say, look, I'm not running from child support. I'm not hiding. Here I am. Georgia, can you go ahead and tell me what my financial obligation is? And do it. I was surprised at that. So I think I know he's getting dragged in the media. I know he is, but I think there is something to say for a father, despite his stance on custody and visitation and all of that, there is something to say about a parent who is willingly availing himself to the court to say, I know I have a child out there. Here is my financial, or tell me my financial obligation and I'll handle it. So we got to give him some credit there.
We do. And we're getting into it. Y'all see right here, Fulton County Superior Court, September 25th, 2024. This is a petition for paternity and child support. The petitioner is Anthony Edwards. As Attorney Farrey just said, he filed first. Y'all, the child wasn't even born. And he like, hey, look, I'm the daddy, possibly. He asked for a DNA test. And we even when I was a family law attorney, we always advise our clients to get DNA tests, right?
Right. Yes, you got to get the DNA test. I literally had a case before where dad said, no, I don't need a DNA test. I was representing dad. He said he doesn't need a DNA test. The child was 10 years old. He was already on child support. He hired me to file to establish his custody rights. We were negotiating. We had a temporary plan in place. And then he just kept saying, you know what, maybe I should do a DNA test. And I said, okay. So during his visitation, he actually swabbed the kid from using a little DNA test from CVS. It was like one of those home DNA tests. And so he swabbed the kid and it came back that the child wasn't his. Wow. And so I said, okay, well, now let's do a real one. We did a real one. That boy was not his.
Wow.
And he had been paying child support. He had been paying child support for 10 years. And when I tell you, that child looked like him. I kid you not. The little boy looked like him.
I guess we judge it, right? That's how the mama judge it. We like, what that baby look like? Oh, that baby look like us. So that's one of us for 10 years.
That baby looked just like. They say if you feed a child long enough, they start looking like you. And that boy looked just like him. So, but mind you, dad had been paying child support for 10 years.
And does he get any of that money back? Does he get any of that money back?
So he can.
Hell no.
Well, let me,
hell no.
So let me tell you, there is a cause of action. There is something in the law that says you can file a motion to set aside that determination, and which we did. We filed a motion to set aside that determination. And we could have filed a motion also to ask for that child support back. But it's really hard to get that child support back if your ignorance of DNA was a factor, meaning that you knew you could have taken the DNA test.
Yes.
You willingly decided not to. You willingly signed the papers at Child Support Services saying, I'm the daddy, you know, and then you also put yourself out there to the world that you're the father. So when you're doing things like that and you're acting as the father and putting yourself out there, the law says, well, you took that risk. You stepped into that role. You decided not to do the DNA test 10 years ago. So it's not fair now to make mom pay you back all this money you paid for the past 10 years when you should have taken a DNA test from the very beginning when you had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
So, you know, he didn't have a case for that, but you can file in Georgia to request that, you know, and if the facts line up, you may be able to get some of that child support back.
Oh, so y'all hear that now. So Daz, if you got duped, reach out to Attorney Farrey. She may be able to help you get some of your money back. I know the guy back in the day, it was, I don't know, it's like early 2000s. He used to be an artist. And so he got arrested on a child support warrant and had a purge amount. And so a purge amount is set when you have a child support order in place and you're behind, they will call the arrears a purge amount when they lock your ass up for not paying.
Right.
So they locked him up out in Douglas County, and guess the record label paid. It was about $18,000 to get him out. They needed him to go to a show, so they paid, but at the same time, hired an attorney. DNA test comes back, not his baby. Not his baby. And he was in jail, and this had been going on for years. I think this child was like almost 10 years old, but it was the same thing. You could have requested a DNA test.
Yeah.
So I advise, and y'all hear Attorney Farrey advising all men, get a paternity test, okay?
Please.
So you go ahead and have that determination, because sometimes you aren't the father and you're very involved, and it's a blow to you at 10 when the child's 10, and moms play games. So it's really done to protect yourself so that that never can happen. So you know from day one that this is what it is.
Yeah. I actually had another dad who that we represented. His daughter was 16, and he always had some sort of just, you know, just some inkling that she may not have been his. And he did the same thing. He took a DNA test, didn't tell mom, didn't tell the daughter, and the daughter was not his. But he did not tell anybody. He did not tell anybody because, I mean, here we are at 16. He already had a relationship with her. That was his baby girl. You know, he was a great father involved. And so it hurt him to his core. But at that point, it's like, do you really want to hurt the child? Because that's the person that it would be hurting. He was hurting on the inside too, but he just decided not to tell anybody.
Wow. That's, I mean, I guess, you know, he had already been there for 16 years. Why hurt the child and give them all psychological problems because they mama ain't shit? He might just decide to stay involved. That's outstanding. I mean, he was already almost at the end too. He only had 2 more years. So did he have to continue paying child support?
He did. And the child support wasn't the issue. Most of the times when dads come to me is after something happens, right? That's usually when people hire a lawyer, is when something happens. And so most of the times when dads come, it's because they've been placed on child support by Child Support Services, or mom is threatening child support, or has filed, or mom is withholding, you know, the child, and they can't see their child. And so by the time fathers come to me, it's usually a situation like that. And so when he came to me, that was the situation. He was already on child support for several years, and mom just started acting up regarding custody. So we had to get in there and enforce his custodial rights. And then the question of child support was just lingering in the back of his mind. And that came up. But he told us, he said, look, I'm just going to keep paying. You know, she needs to be taken care of. And who knows where the real dad was? Because we don't know who the real dad was. You know, who knows where he was? So if he did not continue to pay, who would have been that father to step in there to help mom out, you know, with continuing to raise his daughter? So no, he just kept it rolling, kept paying the child support, and continued to be a dad.
Wow, that's good. That's upstanding of him. That is, because it definitely could have went a different way. All right, so y'all, where you go? Okay, there we go. All right, so as we stated, Anthony Edwards filed this petition for paternity and child support. So you were mentioning early in Georgia that, and this is where this was filed, you all, in Georgia. And as we stated, it's almost a month before this child is born. So was this a smart move for him to file this early?
I think it was. And the thing is, even though he filed it early, I think, at the end of the day, the court will still wait for the birth of the child because one, we want to make sure there is a live birth of the child, and then two, when the child comes, that's the more appropriate time to start working out a schedule and what will happen, and then the court will assess the child's needs as well. So you actually need a live child to get all that in place, even though he's not looking for that, but just practical reasons, it makes sense to wait till the child's actually here. But and I know we're going to get into the documents, but based on the documents and the communications and emails, Anthony was fed up. He was like, look, I'm wanting you to take this DNA test. You're not doing it. You're dragging your feet. We've been at this for months now. Let me just go ahead and file. So he probably just wanted to go ahead and file to establish jurisdiction here in Georgia to move things along, since according to him, mom wasn't cooperating.
Now, if mom, because she alleges that she lives in California, so that is how the whole court drama ensued, right? If she truly lives in California, where would he file this paternity child support? Do you file it where mom lives, or do you file it where dad lives?
So if he were to file, and she lived in California, and she truly lived in California, meaning her and the minor child had been in California at least for 6 months prior to him filing this lawsuit, then California would be considered the home state of the child. So any action that you want to take, whether it's custody or child support, you file in the state where the other person lives if it's child support. Now, if it is custody, you file in the state where the child lives.
Okay.
So it really depends on what the person is looking for. But in this case, Anthony was not looking to establish custody. And if mom truly was a resident of California, which we now know the court found that she wasn't, but if she truly was a resident of California with the minor child, then if he wanted any custodial rights and child support, he would have had to file in California. But, based on, the facts that we now know, according to the court, that's been confirmed to be true, since mom is a resident of Georgia, he actually filed in Georgia, which is the appropriate place to file.
Okay. So y'all hear that, fellas? If you got a child that's on the way, suspected in Georgia, file first. Okay. So mom can't play anything. And I think it's going through the paperwork. She says she was in California and she started, I think, getting health insurance April 2024. So come September, it's only 5 months. So you haven't really established your residency if you are trying to say that's when you move. So filing in Georgia was smart for him. And like the courts have said, the right move. So he files this petition. He says he's a resident of the state of Georgia in Fulton County. Respondent, who is Ayesha Howard, is a resident of DeKalb County, and she may be personally served, and he lists an address. So he's saying she stays in DeKalb County and actually has a home here where she can be served. So therefore, if these two things are true, then he's saying this court has jurisdiction over the parties, and the subject matter being child support and paternity, because that's all he's asking for. He states the parties were never married to each other, and the petitioner, Anthony Edwards, is entitled to an order requiring DNA testing. So is this something that's in every petition asking for the DNA test, or could he have said, I'm dad, I just want to be legitimized and start paying?
It should be. It should be in every test. And just going back for a second, I noticed too in this document, like in paragraph 3, I don't know if you noticed. So usually in Georgia, you have to state at least the initials of the child and when they were born. He just said there is one minor child who may be the child of the petitioner. He didn't even say whether the child was born at the time or there. And it's possible because he didn't know, right? So he probably didn't know whether or not the child was born at the time. So I noticed that his attorney was very careful in how they crafted this petition, to not necessarily say that the child was here or whether the child was, still yet to be born. So I thought that was interesting. But in every petition, there should be, especially since this is a petition for paternity, right? Where he's saying, hey, let me know, or I want to know whether or not I am the biological father. It makes sense that he would ask for DNA testing. Now, if it was a petition for what I mentioned is called legitimation in Georgia, where he's asking the court to recognize him as the legal father, because in Georgia, everywhere is different. But in Georgia, I always tell people Georgia is like the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
We still live in the South. We still have Southern ways and Southern schools of thought. And what the laws say in Georgia right now is when two people who are not married have a child, mom by default has all sole custody and all parental rights.
Yeah.
That's by default. That's what the law says in black and white. So right now, Ayesha has all sole legal and custodial and parental rights. She makes all the decisions. She can do what she want to do. She can, carry on, not even consult Anthony about anything regarding, their daughter. She could just, just go along and be a parent by herself. So in Georgia, you have to file a petition for legitimation to say, hey, state of Georgia, I want you to recognize me as the legal father and the biological father. And in that instance, if you're asking the court to recognize you as the legal father and the biological father, then most times, depending on the dad, most times they may say, I know I'm the dad. I know I'm the dad. I don't need DNA testing. They'll put that in the paperwork. There's no dispute regarding DNA testing. I am the biological father. However, just recognize me as the legal father. So when they do that, then oftentimes, depending on the judge may just sign off on it and not require DNA testing. So it should be in every petition, but absolutely it is a requirement that needs to be listed if the petition is just for child support, because the way that the person becomes obligated for child support is you have to be deemed the biological father.
And when you just said legitimation, I just realized he didn't ask for that in this petition.
He
didn't want to be recognized as the legal father. That's cold. Like
he did not ask for legitimation at all. And I think it was in one of the documents. It may have been in one of the California documents. He made it clear, I am not seeking custody or visitation. He made it very clear in black and white.
So he literally is just saying, give me my DNA test so I can make sure this is my seed before I drop a dime, and then tell me how much I got to pay. Like, I don't know. Okay, so if he doesn't legitimize, because I know that's required, right, for you to be the legal father in Georgia, which then opens the child up to be able to inherit from the dad and vice versa, right, in case the child was to, die before mom or dad. What does this do? Because he's not asking for legitimation, does that mean that this child will not be able to legally inherit from him?
That's a good question. And I don't know if, so in Georgia, dads, just by nature of the law, dads are the only ones who can, is the only parent that can ask to legitimate his relationship with the child, just by nature of the law, because he doesn't have any rights right now. And so, as you mentioned, the benefit is the minor child gets to inherit from dad. So God forbid if something happened to Anthony and there's this, huge bank account with funds, or there's this huge inheritance money out there. If Anthony doesn't ask to be deemed the legitimate child of the father, then the child doesn't get to inherit from him.
Wow. I just thought about that. So that's
and vice versa. Vice versa.
Yeah.
He would be able to inherit from the child. So, like, God forbid, if something happened to the child, and maybe there was a lawsuit and a settlement with millions of dollars out there, he won't be able to inherit that from his child if he's not deemed the legal father, because he technically is not a legal parent.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Wow,
You're right.
that is something. So not only does he no custody, no visitation, don't even legalize me as dad, as the father. So don't put me no birth certificate. Don't do all of that. Just tell me how much I got to pay her and I'm out. That is something. So 40 Shorty says that's not cold. He told the chick to get an abortion. Majorities of females are sick. Now, I can't agree with all of that, but he did tell her to get an abortion. And does that matter? Does he get to come in the court and say, Judge, I told her not to have the baby, she had it. Why do I have to do anything? Does that matter?
Not in a child support case.
No.
Especially not in a child support case where dad is saying, here I am. I'm ready to pay child support. That doesn't matter. Now, it would matter if he was looking for some sort of custodial rights and some sort of parenting time. And if he wanted to be deemed the legal father. Because one of the things that the court looks at is, did he abandon the opportunity to legalize his relationship? So was he involved? Did he help with the hospital costs? Ayesha says no, that he was nowhere to be found.
Right.
But the court would look at, was he involved? Was he, at the baby shower? Did he rub her belly at night? Did he go to the doctor's appointments with her? Did he send her diaper money, and crib money? Apparently, Ayesha says no, because in her California documents, she literally, on her petition, asked for money for a crib. What did she say? A crib, diapers, and wipes, and some birthing expenses. So, in essence, when it boils down to it, it's just like, nah, it doesn't. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, but in child support court, it doesn't matter whether he asks for an abortion or not. The child is here and he is financially obligated. But if he wanted visitation and custodial rights, then at that point, the court will consider what type of involvement he's had. They'll look to see whether he truly wanted to be a parent. And that text message about you get an abortion, I mean, that happens a lot. It doesn't necessarily cut off a dad's right to be a parent, because people get scared. They want an abortion for various reasons. And then they may have a change of heart. When the baby gets here, then they're like, you know what? I'm going to man up. I want to be a parent. Please let me have custodial rights. So it just really depends on the facts.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Sounds like Ashley had a question. So she noticed that I also noticed that his address isn't there, but hers is, which is probably not her real residence, but a grandparent or parent, which public will view, and it paints a picture of socioeconomic status. And so surprisingly or not, this is how all petitions are done, right? We never list the petitioner's address, and we only are listing the respondent to prove the jurisdiction and venue. And so unfortunately, it has to be listed. So
that's just to serve the person. And to serve the person. So sometimes people will use the sheriff's office to serve a person. And so the sheriff needs to know where to go to serve them personally with the papers. So you have to indicate in your filing where that person is, so they know where to go to try to attempt to serve the person with the legal papers.
Yeah. So, and I see a lot of back and forth opinion, and there's a poll as well up for you all to check out. But I do agree with some of his moves. I do agree, and we spoke, this was the best move, to go ahead and file first. Put yourself before the court so that you can control the child support. Because see, sometimes men will get caught up in sending whatever the woman's asking to avoid this process, and you end up spending money to hide the process or not have to go through it. And just go ahead and get it set by the court, because those things won't even be sometimes counted as child support. They may be looked at as gifts. And so you'll be still having to go back and pay. Georgia doesn't do back child support. That hasn't changed, right? I know we didn't when I practiced.
It hasn't. It's kind of a gray area. And the reason I say that is because, the court can take into consideration any out-of-pocket expenses that the mom may have incurred. Like in this instance, when Ayesha did wave the white flag and say, all right, let's go ahead and deal with it in Georgia, because California kicked it to Georgia. I noticed that in her filing, what she did ask for was birthing expenses. Like, she wants expenses even since before the child was born. And so there's some case law out there that does allow that. But it's not like, I think some states, like maybe Florida, they may go back and add up all the, months that this person should have been paying, and now this person has a lump sum arrears of child support. But that's not the case in Georgia. Georgia is not going to go back and add up all the months and come up with a figure and make you pay this lump sum of back child support. But they will consider some expenses that were incurred for the child through the birthing process, like medical expenses.
Like medical, or if medical expenses. Do you get anything for like the nursery, setting up the nursery, the crib, all of that?
No. It's not. She could try, but the law is not carved out to, reimburse her for the cord if you put in a baby's nursery and in a blanket and stuff. No, it's more so geared towards like if there is insurance and there's like some co-pays, some deductibles, some co-insurances, and she had to come out of pocket, or if it's still out there, the child was just born, less than a year ago. So she may still have some hospital debt. And
Yeah.
so in that instance, the law does give her an avenue to ask that he reimburse her for any of those or just pay them.
Okay. Okay. So y'all be learning some good information. Shout out to Attorney Farrey, breaking it all down to us so we can understand how this goes. All right. So we told you all Anthony Edwards filed a month before the child was born here in Georgia. And then after the child was born, Ayesha Howard filed her case in California. All right. So at first she didn't have an attorney. So her documents were like boring, one page. It really wasn't. We're not gonna go through that. But she filed a declaration. So once she served Anthony with the California documents, he filed a motion to dismiss that case, alleging that she didn't live in California. Now, he gave us a little tea, but I'm not going to go through that because Ayesha gave us all the tea in hers.
So, right. And look, so I did a timeline because I think when we look at the timeline of how how things happen, I think some people might, feel bad for Anthony. Let me tell you, because so Anthony filed his petition. We already said September 25th, 2024, right? And we know from other, documents that he already said his lawyers was going back and forth with her lawyers saying, hey, let's get this paternity test done. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Her lawyers were like, okay, if we get it done, it needs to be done, in Atlanta, but she was, for whatever reason, she was stalling. I don't know. And so he said that he needed to go ahead and just file the papers. And that's why he filed, so he can go ahead and formally ask the judge for a DNA order to force her to take the DNA test. So this was September 25th, y'all, 2024. Then the baby was born October 14th, 2024. And all of this is in the court documents. So the baby was born. And the baby was born in California. And we're going to talk about how that happened. But then come October 15th, that's when Anthony then filed a motion in Georgia and said, hey, I want to take the DNA test, like you mentioned. Then a week later, October 22nd, after he had already filed his paternity case, already filed the motion saying I want DNA testing, for the very first time, Ayesha runs to California, not Georgia. She runs to California and files for the very first time child support. Now, this is a week after he asked for DNA testing in Georgia. And almost a month after he had already filed in Georgia to get child support going. She runs to California and she files that October 22nd, 2024. Then 2 days later, Dad was able to catch up with her and get her served. That was October 24th. So 2 days after Mom filed her child support case in California, Dad was able to catch up with her and get her served October 24th. And then December 5th, Dad was then served with the child support case. So we have to do it forth, right? Because in order for the case to move forward, you have to put the person formally on notice. You can't just text them and say, hey, I filed the lawsuit. You have to personally put the papers in their hands using the sheriff or somebody who's been appointed by the court to serve them. And so she was able to get him served with her papers on December 5th. So we have him filing in September, baby born in October. Day after baby born, he wants DNA testing. A week later, she goes and files her child support case in California. 2 days later, he's able to catch up with her and get her served. And then in December, she then is able to get him served with the child support case that she filed in California. So now we got two cases going, the Georgia child support case and then the California child support case. And the parties are battling. Anthony's like, I filed in Georgia. Mom is like, no, we're going to come to California. And I filed in California, so we need to duke it out here. So I'm going to let you take it from there, but that's how it happened with the back and forth. And then that's where the cross motions to dismiss each other's case came about.
Thank you for the timeline. Y'all see that? So that's crazy. Okay, so what was the advantage of her to file in California? Like, why wouldn't she just submit herself to the Georgia case?
So, and so according to the filing, and this is what Anthony lawyers are saying, and the filing also included a sworn affidavit from Anthony. So this is what he's saying as well. There's a legal doctrine called forum shopping. Basically, that's a fancy way of saying, she's just trying to pick and decide what court is going to get her the best child support outcome. That's what Anthony is saying she did.
Okay.
So, and when you look at the timeline of things, so, in the documents that he filed, he said mom lived in Georgia all the way up until sometime in September of 2024.
Yes.
She was in Georgia. And then sometime in September, she then traveled to California and had the baby in LA.
Yes.
And he said she was renting a room from a back house. I don't even know what a back house is. What is that?
Me neither. She said she's renting a back room in a house in Inglewood. Like, girl, get out of here. Are you even suited to have the child?
So allegedly, well, I don't know. It was in the documents. I'm going to say according to the documents, she was renting from some landlord, in California. And so then she had a baby in LA. So, and we know that from the California documents. So when she went to California in September, just for a hot second, she gives birth. And so what Anthony's lawyers were saying, like, she just went there because she wanted to try to establish jurisdiction in California. And so I think, because California is very familiar with celebrities and high income earners, they're very familiar with these type of cases. There have been a lot of results coming out of California where these moms have really been walking away with a bag. They really have. And, Anthony alleges that mom knows that. She knows that she can go to California and possibly get a higher child support amount because in Georgia, there's a cap. So in Georgia, we have a child support calculator. And now the child support caps off at somebody who makes $40,000 a month. So it used to be $30,000, but it went up just recently because the economy, everything just costs so much nowadays. So for years, it was $30,000 a month. But now it is $40,000 a month. So what that means is in Georgia, if someone is earning more than $40,000 a month, that child support number is not going to move unless you argue that it should move and you have to try to convince the court to give you more child support. So we know he makes absolutely more than $40,000 a month. But that child support is going to sit at only $40,000 a month.
Wow.
And what Ayesha it's going to sit at whatever is computed based on a salary of $40,000 per month. And of course, they'll take her salary into consideration and her papers that she's unemployed.
Okay.
And so in that instance, what Ayesha is going to have to do, she's going to have to convince the Georgia judge that the child support should be calculated at an amount that is more than somebody that's only making $40,000 a month. So it's called a high income deviation. And that's what happens in a lot of these high profile celebrity cases, people that earn multi-millions and more than that $40,000 a month. It is up to the other parent to prove evidence and bring argument to the court and convince the judge to give her more than what that cap is. So that's why she wanted to go to California.
Okay. So now we get it, y'all. Y'all see, she was being a gold digger. That's what they doing. They be digging for gold out there in California. Like that's so okay. So now it makes sense. So that's what I'm saying. Like I was back and forth on this topic. So I did agree with a lot of his moves, but then the child support all up front, and we're gonna get to that. I don't necessarily know if and not want to be involved in a child's life. That's the one I really wasn't cool with. So we are going to go to the California docs because this is, and I even saved it as juice because this is where all the tea was. Okay. So let's get into it, y'all. So this is the declaration of Ayesha Howard. So as Attorney Farrey took us through the timeline, once Ayesha filed her case out in California and Anthony was finally served in December, then documentation started going back and forth, and Anthony filed a motion to dismiss this case saying that, hey, she lives in Georgia, she doesn't live in California. And Ayesha responded to that, and this is her response to I live in California. But she dropped a lot of stuff in this one, so we're going to go through it, all right? So it says, I, Ayesha Howard, and declares that I am the petitioner in this matter, that matters stated herein are true of my own knowledge, except as to those matters which are stated on information and belief. So basically, I'm telling you stuff I know for fact And the stuff I don't know for a fact, I'm telling you where I got it from. Okay, so that's how we get our exhibits. So she states that she is 36 years of age, resides in Los Angeles, California with the daughter, Aubrey Howard, born in October of 2024 at UCLA, Santa Monica. So this is the daughter born to from Anthony Edwards. Okay, born October 2024. Anthony filed in September prior to the child being born. She says, I am also a musician, brand ambassador, influencer, host, and songwriter, and I have been employed under the California-based record label Good Fortune since 2020. I guess she's trying to, really establish that.
She was really trying to beef it up because this was filed by her in February of 2025, so this year in February. But then I noticed that she turns around and comes to the Georgia court in March and says, I'm unemployed. I don't make any money. But when she wanted California to be the jurisdiction, she's over there telling California all the ties she has to California. And so that's why she's now saying, I'm a musician, a brand ambassador, an influencer, a host, a songwriter, and I've been employed under California-based record label since 2020. Nowhere in here did she say she's unemployed. At least I don't recall seeing that.
Nope.
So in February, you're telling California all these things about your employment and your ties to California because you want so bad for California to have jurisdiction. But then when California says, no, we don't have jurisdiction, go back to Georgia. Now she's coming back to Georgia and she's like, Judge, I'm unemployed. I don't work. I'm unemployed. Well, what happened to being an artist? Yeah, what happened to the business?
Right. And because she filed a court document, this is a sworn affidavit, it can be used against her in the case in Georgia, right? So she can't come in here saying, I don't work, because no, you said you do all of this. She's all of this.
And that's absolutely what I'm sure her attorneys will do, is pull all of the California documents if they don't have it already and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and use every single word against her in this Georgia case.
Yes, we're seeing it ourselves right here. So number 3, she says, I met Anthony Edwards in 2022. Over the course of our relationship, we spent time together in various cities while he played for the Minnesota Timberwolves and during his off season. In January 2024, I discovered that I was pregnant with his child. Upon informing Anthony of the pregnancy, he blocked me on all communication platforms and made it clear through text messages that he did not want to be involved in the life of our child. His exact words were that our daughter would be a fatherless child. Okay, so how are we feeling about this? Because I was with Anthony, but in the moves to set up child support. But how do you feel about him saying right off, as soon as she finds out she's pregnant, I don't want to have anything to do with the child?
It is sad, and I don't know. And here's the thing. So I because I represent so many dads, I usually understand some of the actions that they take. And oftentimes they respond out of anger. They may respond just to be vindictive. They may respond just to, poke at the mom. Or they may respond like that out of fear, because we have to remember he's young. Well, I mean, he's young, but he's an adult. But, we can say that he's probably immature, given some of the decisions that he's made as a parent overall. But, there's no telling exactly what he was thinking, when he sent that. I mean, I guess he is doubling down on the fact that he doesn't want any custodial rights or visitation rights. So that speaks volume. But I just will say, I just feel for the child. I do, because these are public documents and records, and the internet is out there. And when this baby girl is going to be reading and on YouTube, and these little kids, they get on their digital devices, this stuff is out there for her to see. And so my heart goes out to, this child, because to see out there that your dad said these things in a text message to your mom, that's going to do something to the child. You know what I'm saying? So in that instance, I'm like, I'm not Team Anthony in that regard. Yeah. But like I said, there's no excuse for it. But sometimes there are some things that happen behind the scene that the public is not privy to that helps provide some understanding as to why he may have sent that. And it could be maybe he did it because he wanted to push her to have an abortion, right? Maybe he thought that if I block her and send these nasty texts, she'll just say, oh no, I'm not having a baby with a person that thinks like that. Let me just go ahead and get an abortion. So maybe that could have been it too.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think?
Yeah, I didn't. This is the part where I'm like, not Team Anthony, right? Like, it's one thing to just don't want to be involved, but to actually put those words into the atmosphere. And of course, he's not thinking when I send this text message that it's going to end up as the court exhibit. Okay. He is not thinking that far, but I think he's going to regret it. I think one day he's going to have a change of heart and he is going to want to have his kids involved in his life. I just hope that this doesn't cause psychological effects on the kid. And right. I hope that it doesn't is a wall that they can't get through later in life. Because I do feel like he'll have a change of heart. I just don't see him going from 23 to 70 not wanting to have anything to do with his child.
Oftentimes they do have a change of heart. They do. Or sometimes what'll happen is, especially in Georgia, dads will try to, fight to see their child or fight to be involved. And, they get exhausted from the court system, or they get exhausted from fighting, or let's just be real. They just get exhausted from dealing with the mom. Yeah. It's just sometimes just the mental battle that goes with that, the emotional battle. Sometimes it's easier for them to just bury their head in the sand, pretend it doesn't exist, and move on in life. So I don't know what their relationship was like, but it could be let me just bury my head in the sand. It's easier to just pay my money and keep moving and not deal with all the stressors that come with co-parenting. So that could be it too. But I do see that happen a lot in these Georgia cases. And that also comes back to bite fathers too, because like you mentioned, they end up regretting it as they grow older and they mature. Then they start wanting to be involved. And he may come 4 or 5 years from now and say, you know what? All right, now I want to be legitimated. I want the courts to recognize me as the legal father. And look, I've been paying all this money and I want some custodial rights. I want to now make some decisions for this child that I did not want to be involved with. So please, Georgia, recognize me as the legal father. And at that time, Georgia can say, no, it's too late. It's too late. Even though you've been paying this money, your actions, these text messages, everything you've been doing has shown this court that you do not want to be an active father. So if 4 to 5 years from now, this child is just still happy, living her life, she may have a new father figure in the picture. Maybe the grandparents will step in, maybe, some other male figure will step in. If she's perfectly fine, under her mom's care and living her life, judges don't want to disrupt that. Why should I disrupt this situation and then insert you into her life when 4 to 5 years ago, you didn't want to do that? Yeah. So in that instance, it may be too late if he has regrets. So
wow, I didn't think about that. Probably
not going. He's just going to have to sit with his regrets until the child is over 18, because it may be difficult for him to come back to a Georgia court to say, okay, now I want to be in my child's life. I'm sorry, I was young. I want to be in my child's life. That judge may say, oh no, sir, you were 20 something years old. You were a full grown adult. You were playing in the NBA, making millions, spreading your feed, and you wanted to ignore this child. So it's too late. Go keep ignoring the child and let this child be. So
yeah, especially since you filed your petition, you didn't even ask for legitimation to begin with. So don't come back now. Wow. Okay, so back to the juice. So, all right. So she talks about these, and we're going to go over the text messages because she attached them to this document. So she says, from that point on, Anthony never reached out to me to inquire about my well-being, the well-being of our child, or any of the needs I had during my pregnancy. I did not receive any support, emotional, financial, or otherwise, throughout the entire duration of my pregnancy. I also repeatedly tried to discuss the paternity of our child asking him for a DNA test, but he only offered a non-legal, unsupervised testing method that made me feel uncomfortable and distrustful. This was clearly designed to avoid his identification and minimize any accountability. Well, what she's talking about is the attorneys were going back and forth, and they wanted to use fake names in the DNA testing. And have you ever done that before? Because I mean, he's a celebrity, right? He didn't want the business out there. Have you ever done a DNA test in fake names? Do they do that?
No, and there's ways around that. So I partner with a certified DNA tester, a certified agent, a person who does DNA testing. And she has experience handling DNA testing for high profile individuals and celebrities. And so in that instance, you can partner with an agency like that or a certified DNA tester like that and have them anonymously take the test. And when I say anonymous, this person is very careful to not leak documents. They're very careful to make sure the public doesn't get a hold of it. They're very careful to make sure to keep everyone's information and identity private. And so it really just depends on the agency, because I think at one point they were talking about using a typical lab that always does the testing. So it really you just have to find the right lab or the right DNA tester that will keep everything private.
Okay. All right. So that's okay. So there was workarounds, but this was a sticking point with them early on. So she says, given Anthony's prior behavior and public scandals involving paternity issues, I understandably declined this informal approach. Despite my repeated efforts to reach out and find a resolution, Anthony's complete disregard for my well-being and that of our unborn child was evident. Despite my concerns, I made several attempts to resolve this situation amicably and privately. I asked Anthony directly to assist me through the pregnancy, to help provide for the needs of our child, and to participate in a DNA test to confirm paternity. However, Anthony continued to avoid me and refused to engage in any meaningful way. Anthony is checked out. Like, he never wanted to be a part of any of this, so this doesn't surprise me. She says she made multiple attempts to work through Anthony's attorney, Sean Lindsay, in good faith when she was unrepresented. Each time, that she talks about how they continued to try to get DNA tests done, but they couldn't reach an agreement, and they had a mediation, it appears. It states that despite obstacles, I tried to be reasonable by agreeing to participate in mediation, despite the lack of support I had received from Anthony throughout the pregnancy. No agreement was reached during mediation, so they didn't work it out. They're still, battling in court.
Right. And mediation, y'all, is so before you go before a judge, oftentimes judges want you to try to work it out with the other side. And that's really the best way to do it, because you stay in control of the outcome. And so she was trying to negotiate, the settlement terms. He was trying to negotiate the settlement terms. They both were negotiating back and forth, and then negotiations fell apart and they weren't able to reach a settlement. So that's what mediation is, when you go back and forth and negotiate. And usually there is a third party, like a referee, so to speak. And that referee will go back and forth, and they may say, okay, well, Anthony, Ayesha's asking for these terms. Have you considered this? Have you thought about the risk if you go to court, because you may pay more? Have you thought about XYZ? And then on the flip side, the mediator or the referee will go to Ayesha and say, okay, look, Ayesha, you have to be reasonable here, because he may not play in the NBA forever. Or if you want him to be involved, maybe reasoning with some reasonable child support amount will be the best thing to do, so that way you can have a peace of mind and move forward. So they did that. They tried to negotiate. They were involved in mediation, and they did not reach a settlement. So that's what she was talking about.
Yeah. So when you don't reach an agreement, it just goes back to court.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the judge has to decide.
And we, like she said, Attorney Farrey said, we always advise clients to try to resolve it in mediation, because you know your child best, right? It's you all situation. You're going to be before the judge for like an hour, 2 hours, and let them make a life-changing decision. It's always better if you can work it out. But unfortunately, they were not. So she states that no agreement was reached during the mediation. It became clear that Anthony had no intention of being a part of his child's life. So she's still holding out hope, right, that he's going to come around, and she's seeing more and more that's not going to happen. Now, she says that despite Anthony's attorney and him being fully aware of her correct residential address in California, information that her attorney directly provided to them June 2024, they have nevertheless submitted documents listing my address as being in Georgia. This is not a simple error. It is a deliberate misrepresentation of my actual residence. And she's going to post an exhibit of how she tries to prove that her residence. And Attorney Farrey mentioned earlier, your residency is determined when it comes to court cases where you were living 6 months prior to the filing. So per Anthony, 6 months prior to him filing in Georgia, she was staying in Georgia. And so that's kind of what they're going back and forth.
Right. He was saying that, she only temporarily went to California in September to have this baby. And she was only there temporarily. And, that's what his argument was. He was saying, look, California, she was only here for a short time. This is not where she intended to make her home or to have a residence, because he even made the good argument. He said, why would a mom of 2 children travel from Georgia to California, or move from Georgia to California to live with the newborn, and her other child is still back in Georgia?
That part.
It was like, why would she do that?
It makes no sense. Mm-hmm.
Right. So he's like, no, she is not a resident of California.
Nope. And she has a 9-year-old child with a little baby. So that's the other child, and that child stays here. So she's number 6. She says, Anthony's behavior toward me is part of a disturbing pattern of neglect and irresponsibility, particularly in his role as a father. This is when she started telling all his business. She says, he has fathered multiple children with different women in a short period of time and has been involved in serious scandals. He coerced OnlyFans model Paige, I think that's pronounced Jorday, into ingesting abortion pills in exchange for $100,000. Like, that seems to be his magic number. Like, you pregnant, here go $100K, get out. Get out my way, right? That's how he gets rid of these kids. It's $100K. So it's worth $100K to him. Like, these women will take $100K. And how do you court? What, I don't even know how.
I don't know how you coerce someone unless you just, grab them by the neck and shove the pills down her throat. I don't know how you coerce somebody to do that too.
No, it sounds like, she was enticed to take the money, and this is what she did. He could be nasty to you and he could be mean, but nobody can force you.
And why did she have to say that she was an OnlyFans model? Like, why did she have to say that?
Right. She put her business out there, right? Telling us. And that's the scandal that I was aware about, because it was kind of going on around the same time that their case started up. But that's the one, because she was very public and posting a lot of things. So she did not end up having a child, I don't believe. But we're going to keep reading. So she was forced to send a video of herself taking the pills as proof in order to receive the promised money. That came from a New York Post news article, and she has that attached to this petition as well. We'll look at that. After she sent the video, Anthony and his lawyer stopped responding to her, prompting her to expose him online. But so they didn't send the money? Is that what they're saying? I don't know. But what was the expose about? You agreed to participate in this, so I don't get exposing him after the fact.
Right.
Shortly after, another woman, Allie D, who shares a son with Anthony, came forward. She accused him of being an absent father and refusing to publicly acknowledge their son. So this is child number 2. She has a printout of an MSN news article talking about that. And then that Allie D posted test results confirming paternity and accused Anthony of having another secret child with a woman named Deja Beauty. So now we on child number 3, who gave birth to his first child September 2023. So Ayesha found out she was pregnant January 2024. Anthony had a child allegedly with Deja Beauty September 2023. Furthermore, Anthony was expecting a child with yet another lady, Shannon Jackson, a former stripper at the club Blue Flame. That's a strip club in Atlanta, Georgia. And she lives with him in Minnesota. I lost count. I think this is, okay, so Shannon gave birth to the 3rd child, March 2024. So that would mean that Ayesha's child born in October would be the 4th child.
Right.
In a year and a month. Wow, that is wild. Like at 23 and you worth all of this money, like yeah, somebody needs to stop shooting the club up. Like this is
right. But did she know, I haven't really been following, this. Did Ayesha know about these women and the children?
She said she found out about all of this when she's pregnant.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Even when, so when did the first mother come out? Was that when she was pregnant too? Was it Paige?
I think she's gonna, let's see.
I wasn't following that story. The one who says that she was where Ayesha said she was ingesting abortion pills in exchange for $100.
That story broke. Did she put the date in here? Because I know it's attached. You have to look on the date.
I guess we'll look at that.
Yeah, we'll look at the exhibit and date and see when that was dropped. But she said she kind of discovered all of this stuff while she was pregnant. So she says in October 2024, I gave birth to my daughter, Aubrey Howard, here in California, where I have called home for the past 2 years. Let's see. She says, given my circumstances, it became necessary for me to file a paternity petition and pursue both child support and custody. However, she was already aware that Anthony had filed in Georgia, so she could have just submitted herself to the Georgia filing and not done a case in California, but neither here nor there. She says, California is not only my home, but the place where my daughter and I have established our lives. We have deep roots here, and everything I have done in the past 2 years has been built around this state. I have ample documentation to support my residents' employment. She says she got a job and overall life in California. She says she has a driver's license in California, Anthem Blue Cross of California for the last 2 years, and she's registered to vote in this state. And she conducts all her banking in a California banking institution. In this paragraph, she talks about emails. Oh, okay. So in Anthony's thing, he submitted emails between the attorneys where her attorney was saying she'll be in Georgia for the summer if you want to do the DNA testing. And she's saying that was just a 2-week short-term visit. I don't live in Georgia. So that's what that paragraph was about. Because I want to get to these exhibits. Oh, in response to the arguments raised by Anthony's attorney, it's important to clarify that my past connections to Atlanta, Georgia should not and do not establish jurisdiction there. I have not worked in Georgia or been involved in any businesses, including clubs, in over a decade. Anthony says she stripped at Magic City until January of 2024. So this is her dispelling that allegation.
And he says that she has a podcast, and he said the business for the podcast is actually registered in Georgia.
We're gonna look at that exhibit. Yeah. So okay, how are you doing business? You live in California, but why when you register your business there?
Right.
So yeah, it's given. I live in Georgia, and I just ran out here to have this baby so I can get some more money.
Right. She says she hasn't worked or been involved in Georgia or any businesses in over a decade, but yet we'll see the evidence where she registered her business in Georgia.
Yes. And then in number 11, she says, to her surprise now, so already capped. Shortly after I filed my petition in California, I learned that Anthony had filed for support in Georgia. Now, this is a lie because there was communication after the Anthony filed in Georgia between the attorneys about this DNA test. So she knew good and well that Anthony had filed a case in Georgia prior to her filing her petition. But this is just her way to kind of keep the case in California because Ayesha out for a bag.
Yeah, and she actually, what Anthony's lawyers filed in their filings in response to this was that she knew because they said on October 7th of 2024 and weeks thereafter that, all of that had hit the fan as far as the blogs and articles. Mm-hmm. It was circulating around the internet. And she actually talked to a Georgia family law attorney October 20th of 2024. So 2 days before she filed her case in California, she was out in Georgia talking to a Georgia family law attorney. So why are you talking to a Georgia family law attorney 2 days before you filed your case in California if you didn't know about the Georgia case?
Exactly. She's lying. Not, and it's gonna come out. It's all in the court documents. It's all in the court documents. Oh, where was I just at? Oh, sorry, Juice. All right, so she talks about the DNA test here because I want to get to these exhibits. She just still arguing that California is the best jurisdiction. I think that's pretty much all of the tea in the document part. So let's look at the exhibit. So this is, she filed she's proving to us that the Good Fortune record label is a California business. Does it say who owns this business? Arthur Winfield. Okay. And this is a picture of her, I guess a single she has, Leaving You, Little Miss Golden. I guess that's her stage name. So this is her proof that I am a California resident. And this is also how she says she makes money, right? Then she says she's employed, she's a songwriter, a music artist.
But then when thinking about this, basically what she is saying is, I'm employed with this record label. Look, this record label is registered in California, so I'm a California resident. That doesn't make sense. Think about it. How many of us are employed and our employer's home base is registered in another state? Exactly. So if you're working in Georgia, for example, but your employer's home base or business is registered in Delaware, that doesn't make you a Delaware resident. It just means that your employer's business is registered there. Exactly. So that argument doesn't add up because, just like you were saying, does it even say that she owns the business?
No.
It doesn't make sense. So that argument, they were really stretching. They were reaching for an argument to try to connect her ties with California.
Yep, she was reaching. So this is, let me go down because I want to go to the infamous. Okay. So we'll show all of these. So these are text messages between her and Anthony that she filed as exhibit. So this is her in blue, and she says, maybe there's a lesson in it for us, all one you might actually learn from this time. He says, I'm not trying, I ain't trying to learn. I'm not trying to learn. So he's like, I ain't trying to learn. Like, short to the point, I'm over it. Obviously, but learning might actually help you move differently so you don't keep revisiting the same situations if that makes sense to you. Okay, LOL. I mean, he's over it, right? He's not.
It is a joke to him.
Yeah, he's laughing her off. And this like LOL is pissing her off even more, which is why these paragraphs get longer and longer, right? As a female, it's like, nigga, I'm trying to tell you how I feel, and you're gonna hit me with the LOL. Like, I'm sitting over here pregnant, carrying your baby. And this is she all in her emotions.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you get unalived when you messing with these chicks. She says, I'm not trying to go back and forth with you, period. Already you seem bullheaded on defense for whatever reason, and we ain't even got to get into that, but I'm grown enough to cut to the chase because I'm grown enough to accept the consequences of my actions, whether you're ready to accept yours. On that note, we can have this conversation now or later in person or text, but the situation has become deeper than we both may have intended, and being childish, running from it won't make it go away. I'm pregnant. Wanted to tell you in person, but you gave me no other choice. We probably should have kept it cordial, but we're here now. And he responds, okay, LOL, get the abortion, LOL. Man, like that.
Yeah, it sounds like they were already having relationship issues, because then he says, all right, so I'm pregnant, by the way. I wanted to tell you in person, but you haven't, cooperated with us meeting up and seeing each other. So it sounds like there may have been some issues there already, which is why I said, again, I'm not excusing his actions, but he, there is something else behind all of this that we don't know about that's causing him to react like this, so I'm curious as to what that is, but they definitely
it was weird that she was like, she talked about the lessons and all this kind of stuff, and then just blurts out, oh yeah, okay, well, I want to tell you in person, but I'm pregnant. Like, what? And she found out in January. So this is February 21st. So for at least for a month, you haven't seen him. So like you say, it was trouble in paradise prior to him finding out. So he's like, get an abortion. She says, I don't need hush money. My intentions aren't to blackmail you in any way. I'm being upfront and honest. I'm not getting an abortion. It's not an option. I can keep you updated through the process, or I can disappear until the baby's here. It's on you. Either way, I'm done going back and forth because you still think it's a joke. He says, oh my God, cry face, cry face. It's about like, he's immature as shit. Like, this would, I would.
He is immature, and it
Yes.
sounds like he knows how to push her buttons.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, he just keeps laughing and laughing.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
you know, I
Yeah.
think he's, again, maybe it's the buildup because he wants her to get an abortion. Maybe
Yeah.
he thought it was a joke and she was,
Mhm.
because, you know, when people are young and dumb and in love, you know, when they start fighting, sometimes the woman may say, well, I'm pregnant with your child, just as a way to get the
Mhm.
dad's
Yeah.
attention, or, you know, her boyfriend or whomever's attention, to make him
Mhm.
start communicating. So maybe he thought this really was a joke. So maybe he's like, haha, well, get an abortion if you're pregnant,
Mhm.
just to see how she would react. And then
Yeah.
months later, here we are. He's like, oh, she was pregnant for real. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Like, it's the
probably
real
thought
deal.
it was a joke. Who knows?
Yeah. He probably, maybe, yeah, because they hadn't seen each other. So he like, girl, bye, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, not bye. See you later. Anthony, do you hate me? Now it's
Oh,
like,
there we
okay.
go. There, you know, it's
Yeah.
some feelings there. She wants to know, why aren't you talking to me? Do you hate me? Why are you telling me to abort our
Mhm.
baby? You know,
Yes.
there's some feelings still there.
Yeah, it is. And this is the hard part, right? Because I sympathize with her. Obviously, this wasn't a hit it and quit it, right? They obviously had some type of dealings with each other. Feelings developed, and it's like now the real life situation has occurred, and he just like, hey, deal with it. She's
Yeah,
like,
she said
Anthony, do
they
you?
met in 2022. So,
Yeah, and she didn't get pregnant. She found out she was pregnant to January 2024.
right.
So, I mean, they were doing something, right? And a lot of times guys will act like, I know I used to, as a public defender, I used to be a public defender in Fulton County. We would cover what's called child abandonment court. And this is the court where if dad doesn't pay child support for at least 30 days in Georgia, mom can file a warrant. And so we're always in this court. It's always drama. And like dad will be like, she ain't this, she ain't. Yeah, but you chose her. Like you chose this situation. You all chose to be involved with each other. You can't now hate each other because you don't like how things turned out. Like that's not fair to the child. But you see it a
Right.
lot. I know you do. You see this all the time.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It happens all the
Mhm.
time. And it's really unfortunate because
Mhm.
oftentimes, you know, these parents are acting from their emotions and they don't keep
Mhm.
the child first and they don't think about the child. And
Yeah.
so when they're in mediation trying to negotiate and reach an agreement and they don't, oftentimes it's the emotions. And
Yeah.
so when they go in front of that judge, however, the only emotion the judge has is for that child.
Yes, the judge is only concerned about the best interest of the child. You try to get your clients to understand that, but sometimes when it's that emotional wall, they just don't get it.
They
They're
don't.
too caught up. They can't see it. She said, so he's like, yes, like, do I hate you? Yes. This is a typo, but he
Oh,
meant,
that's what that meant. Okay, I was wondering.
yeah,
Okay.
because the H and the Y is close together. So it's just an autocorrect thing. So yeah, because you bringing a child in the world that's going to be without a father. So this is like the part where people start dividing, right? Is
Mhm.
do you get to have an attitude with dad? And do we get to call him a deadbeat when he said from day one that I don't want this child. I don't want to be a part of this child's life. And mom is now forcing the situation, right? It is mom's choice. It's her body. She's in control. But this is the part. So this
It's
is the
their child.
crossroad.
It's their child together, you know, and
Mhm.
that is the tough part because by nature, of course, we're the ones that are going to carry the child. It's just what it is. A man is never going to be able to carry and birth a child. So that is just by human nature. So does it then become only the mother's choice when it's both of their DNA?
Yeah.
Like when a mom decides to abort, but then dad is like, don't do it, and mom aborts, how many people are out there rallying for dad and say, how dare you abort and get rid of a child because dad really wanted to be there? Like,
Mhm.
where where are those people? You
Yeah,
know?
that's
And then
true.
on the flip side, it is her body, her choice. It's
Mhm.
his body and his choice too. And
Yeah.
those two bodies and choices decided to connect and make a third body, you
Yeah.
know. And so is, you know, should dads have a say so? You know, they don't have a say so when mom says no, I'm not getting an abortion. They don't
Mhm.
have a say-so when mom says, I am getting an abortion. Is
Yeah.
that fair? It's both of their DNAs. Is
Yeah.
that fair?
Yeah,
And
I don't
everybody's
know,
saying
like,
mom,
man.
her body, her choice. But
Mhm,
then if dads were physically able to,
mhm.
give birth, I'm sure dads would exercise that choice too. Let me decide if I
Yeah,
want to have this baby or not. So,
yeah.
I see both sides of the coin. But at the end of the day, it is, dads do get the short end of the stick when deciding whether or not to bring a child in
Mhm.
this world.
Yeah, and that's why you have to protect yourself. As a man, you can end up not being able to make the decision. So you should do everything on the front end to protect yourself, not to be in a situation. Wrap it up, have your own condom so she can't poke a hole in it. Allegedly, that's what happened, but clearly that wasn't the case, right? They had a relationship. They had something going on for almost 2 years. So you just have to, as the man, you got to protect yourself because you're the person that loses control over what occurs when mom gets pregnant. So if you don't want kids, there's a way that can occur safely. So take
And
that route.
women too, they
Yeah,
need to
vice
protect
versa.
themselves too, get on birth control or, take some other measures
Mhm,
to not have a child with someone that
mhm,
will end up in a situation like this,
mhm. Yeah.
So it really is really both parents that need to make,
Mhm.
better decisions when it comes to that. Because otherwise
Yeah,
you
they do.
end up
'Cause
in
you're putting
court.
a child in this world that didn't ask to be here into
Right,
drama from day one. So it's on both of them. So
right.
she says, I'm not asking you to be with me in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And if you choose to be a complete ghost to your seed, that's totally up to you. That's something you'll have to take up with a higher power. Hard to believe when you father a kid outside of your own. But I come in peace, despite what you may think. And I'm not sure how or when to communicate with you without overwhelming you. But we are clear on how you feel. And he's still laughing. I won't be in a child life I don't want. LOL, you are sick.
Hmm.
And the joke, the laughter, I'm sure, it just doesn't help the situation. So she reaches out, says, hi, no attorney. Oh, has reached out to me. And he says this, and then she sends back a sonogram. This is my ultrasound from a month ago. I tried to get my recent one laminated, but the heater from the machine burned the thermal paper and blacked the images out. Then she texts again, July 10th. So now she's like, what, 6 months pregnant or so?
Right.
Here's the appointment, and the system is so she's talking about the blood test wasn't set up in the system, and he's says it should have been switched around, trying to see if she's still there. So they're trying to work out this whole DNA testing. And is that safe for them to do DNA testing before the child is even born?
I was told that it can be. It's safe.
Oh,
It happens. I've worked with some DNA agents
okay.
and companies that will do, I forget the technical term for it, but
Okay.
they can do DNA testing while the child is in the mother's womb. Now, a lot of moms don't want it. They don't like it, only because if they don't have to do something like that while they're carrying the child, they prefer not to, just to avoid any potential risk. But it can be done.
Okay. Okay. So
It
that's
costs more money. It costs more money,
mhm.
but it can be done.
Okay. And so then this is the story she talked about with it coming out about the Instagram model, how he was embroiled in a 100K abortion scandal after the Instagram model exposed his text. And she leaks this story. So Minnesota Timberwolves star
December
Anthony.
18th, 2023. Remember, I wanted to look at the
Oh
date.
yeah, when was this? So yep,
So
published.
that
I wonder
article,
when she found out though, because this would have been a month. Because she found out she was pregnant in January 2024.
January, and she gave birth October 14th.
Uh-huh.
So she got pregnant in January. She gave birth October 14th.
That's true. So
So
this would have came out, this would have broke right around that same time. So I wondered, did this break and she was like, let me go get knocked up too. I don't know. I don't know. So it says Minnesota Timberwolves star Anthony Edwards posted a statement on social media after a woman accused him of impregnating her and then offering her 100K to get an abortion. Paige Jorday, so it says to be the IG model, posted text messages between her and 22-year-old Anthony Edwards, in which she claimed he wrote, get an abortion, LOL. We saw that. We've seen that before. And I will send you money to help you out. Edwards, who signed a 5-year, $260 million max contract. Okay, so this is the problem. He got got too much money.
Maybe she saw that. Look, maybe she saw that in December.
Yeah.
And she really, turned up the notch in January. I don't know.
I don't know.
This is just speculation, but I was curious as to, because in her California documents, like you were reading through, she was making all these allegations and trying to put his business out there about all these other women, but then she gets pregnant by him January 2024.
Yeah.
And then she makes it very clear to him in the text, abortion is not an option.
Yeah.
So
she already knew what was coming because she had already seen this came out December 18th. So, but at the same time, he's paying this person off. He's in some type of relationship with this girl because he knocks her up after this. So you going through a scandal, in December of 2023 with Paige Jordan, and then you're allowing yourself to get caught up again. Like, okay, now I'm feeling less and less sympathetic for Anthony.
I will say that's the part where I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like, come on, bro. You're not learning from nothing.
But you know what? Money empowers people quite a bit. And, it seems like, and most people that have money, they just feel like they can throw money at their problem or issues and do whatever they want. So maybe, he's looking at 260 mil. I can take care of a few children. So maybe he's just throwing the money and he doesn't care. And he just feels like, well, I know she wants money anyway. So let me just give her this money so she can go away and let me continue to do what I do.
Yeah, because I'm like, you're in one scandal and you're actually like, you lay down with her and make a baby after going through this one. So this is a statement he made after, not Ayesha Howard's situation, but after Paige Jordan's text messages leaked. He says, I made comments, and this is in December too. So yeah, she had to know. Ayesha Howard had to know that this was going on prior to her being pregnant.
What is this? A social media post?
Yep. This is it's a social media post that Anthony Edwards made December, and this is in this article December 18th. So I'm not sure when he made this post, but it would have been around the same time, right? So if he made this post prior to her getting pregnant, she already knew what time it was. So Ayesha just wanted to possibly get in on it too. So he says, I made comments in the heat of a moment that are not me and that are not aligned with what I believe and who I want to be as a man. All women should be supported and empowered to make their own decisions about their bodies and what is best for them. I am handling my personal matters privately and will not be commenting on them any further at this time. What's the problem with this, y'all? What's the problem with this? He came back and did the same shit to Ayesha. Like, it's like you make this big public statement like this. I just did that in the heat of the moment. And fast forward a month later, when Ayesha tells you that she's pregnant, you got the same heat of the moment response. And it's like,
well, bro, that tells us that, that was probably his PR team. That's probably exactly, especially looking at how it's worded and all the words are spelled correctly and there's punctuation. Not that he can't spell correctly or anything, but
yeah,
yeah, it's shorthand, it's quick, it's misspelled, So in that situation, that was probably some PR cleaning that up and saying all women should have a right to make a decision about their bodies and be supported. So when you have that statement out there, and then what is it, in February, just 2 months later, you're going back and forth with another woman and you're essentially saying get an abortion, that tells me that was a PR move.
Exactly. And he didn't really mean that, because here are the text messages that Paige put out. Let me make this a little bigger. Is it getting bigger? Okay. All right. So yep, she says she's telling him that she sends the stick picture. I still have an appointment on the 27th. Hell no, can't do this. And you're right. All right. This is so opposite than the statement we just read. So now what? What a great response. Get an abortion. LOL. He laughs at everything like this. He is so immature. Honestly, I had an abortion with my son around 2 years ago and I regret it every day. And he tells her, man, you can't force a kid in the world. You don't know what it is yet. That's not the point. I said I had an abortion 2 years ago and I regret it. And this is the messages between Paige Jordan, which, like we're pointing out, is very similar to how he responded to Ayesha Howard when she said, Paige Jordan also posted the $100,000 wire that he sent. So this is not allegedly.
One thing I always wonder is, why go public with this stuff?
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't understand, and
Didn't.
so was it confirmed that she actually got the abortion? I wasn't following the
I
story.
believe so. But what
Okay.
she said was that Paige Jordan was saying she got ghosted after she sent the video of herself taking the pills. So I don't know, but she got the money. So I didn't understand.
Right.
Like,
So why are we going public? Like, what other than to try to embarrass him? What's the point of going public with all of this?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think it makes the other person look bad. Actually, it reflects back on you too.
Yes.
So I
Exactly.
thought that was just in poor taste to make everything public like that.
Yeah, I didn't get that either at all. And then also she includes, here's another baby. This is one of the other baby mamas she speaks about. Let me see.
And so these are exhibits that Ayesha Howard included in her court filing, y'all. So this
Yes.
is what she included to support her argument to the California court to say, California, this is why you need to keep this case because of everything that's going on. But then she goes on to smear his name by talking about all of these other mothers that he's had dealings with, where it's hit social media. And I think that she was doing this just to prepare her case in case he came to California to ask for custody rights and visitation rights. Because otherwise, what's the point of putting that all in there when it comes to child support?
Exactly. What's the point? So in the California case, the judge there filed an order after going back and forth in the docs that he didn't dismiss the case, but he did say that Georgia is going to handle the child support part and California will keep the custody and visitation part, which we already know Anthony doesn't care anything about. And so there's not really going to be a fight there. But they have court in California in May. So May is their next court date in California. So the case is still open in California, but the child support issues in Georgia. So let's get into, so after the court decided that, which was in February, that is when Ayesha files her March 11th, 2025 answer and counterclaim on Anthony's petition in Georgia. Okay. So she realizes I lost in California. The judge is going to make me have the case in Georgia. It's in regards to child support. So this is where we're going to do this. All right. Now this again, like I say, was filed March 11th, and this is her answer and counterclaim. So in the first part, in the answer, she is responding to things he said in his petition. She corrects one and says that she is a resident of Los Angeles, California, Los Angeles County, and has worked and resided in Los Angeles, California since August 2023. So that's what she says here.
She has to keep that fact going because she already told another court that was the case. So she, and then again, since California is keeping the custody part of it, if it ever becomes an issue, she wants to be able to go to California to argue the custody piece.
Yes. And so the rest of that stuff, she just kind of answers, denies or affirms. But this is where she starts asking for what she wants. And so she files a counterclaim to the paternity and child support that Anthony filed. She states that the jurisdiction and venue of this court is that she's subject to it, that the petitioner is, that's Anthony. She says that she voluntarily avails herself to the jurisdiction. In other words, like, y'all don't really legally have jurisdiction on me, but I'm going to put myself before the court. That's what this statement says. She says she's the natural mother of the minor child, ASH, a female born in 2024. The minor child being in the sole custody, care, and control of respondent, and Ayesha should be awarded temporary, permanent sole care, custody, and control of child. Not a fight. She's going to get that because Anthony's already said, I don't have anything to do with this child.
Right. And when she says sole, when you tell a Georgia court that you want sole custody rights, essentially what she is saying is, I want to be the one to make all the decisions for our daughter. I don't want to have to ask Anthony for anything. I don't want to have to share anything with him. I don't want him to make any decisions. I want to do what I want to do and raise her the way that I feel is best. And then when it comes to the physical custody, she's saying, I want her to stay with me full time, 24/7. She did not even ask the court to consider any parenting time for him, because remember, he's the only one that can ask for legal rights as a parent. So until he asks for those legal rights, he can't get any parenting time anyway. But what she's telling this court is, Judge, I want it on paper that this child is all mine and only mine and no one else's.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
That is. And then she will need that, though, because if she ever tries like get a passport for the child, won't she have to show that she has sole custody or get some kind of like an agreement from dad? But dad doesn't think he's ever going to participate.
So it depends, because I think I remember reading in the documents that she wanted his name added to the birth certificate.
Yeah, she does.
So right now, you know, the way the law is set up when it comes to passports, if only one parent's name is on the passport, on the birth certificate, which by default is going to be mom. So if mom's name is the only name on the birth certificate, she can go get a passport for the minor child because there's no other parent listed. Now with her, and I don't know if she, really want to list him on the birth certificate, because once she puts his name on that birth certificate, then she's going to need him to cooperate to sign off on their child getting a passport. And I think she puts that request in here, like, please add him or his name on the birth certificate. I'm like, I don't know if you want to do that, because if you want to go to Cabo with your girlfriends and then also, take your daughter with you, she can't go if her dad, Anthony, doesn't cooperate with signing off on the passport, because now you've added his name to the birth certificate. Now, now, what she probably needs to do is run down to the passport office, show the birth certificate that doesn't have his name on it, and go ahead and get the minor child's passport. So at least for the next 5 years, she's good to go.
Yeah. Oh, that's good advice. So y'all keep note of that. If dad is on the birth certificate, he has to be involved in the passport process. So that's good to know.
But I will say this too. If she does ask the court for an order that says she has sole custody, they would need to clarify also, because if she does put his name on the birth certificate, that's fine too. But she's going to need not just an order that says sole custody, but also that she can get a passport without his cooperation.
So that needs to be in there too.
Both of that in there if she wants to put his name on the birth certificate.
Okay, so there's a workaround. Okay. Paragraph 11, respondent further shows that the parties have previously conducted genetic testing. Paternity was established 2 days before Christmas, 2024. And so that's not a question there. She requests that this court establish legal paternity of the minor child and establish child support. And she asks that pursuant to the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, that the minor child has lived with the respondent from birth until present. So this is her getting into still saying that I live and reside in California, so that California can maintain the custody and visitation rights portion of the case. But it's all kind of a moot point, because Anthony's not asking for custody or visitation. And so he has no problem with her ask. She states that she's the child's natural mother. She's a fit and loving mother and seeks temporary and permanent sole, legal, and physical custody of the minor child. She says it's in the minor child's best interest that upon the establishment of paternity, here it is, that the minor child's birth certificate be amended by entering petitioner's name as the father of the minor child. But she's not asking for the child's name to be changed, but she does want dad's name added to the birth certificate. She also asked for reimbursement for her actual costs incurred during her pregnancy, birth, and expenses incurred after the child's birth, including child care, medical expenses of the child, infant care necessities, prenatal medical expenses, clothing, and travel to and from OBGYN during pregnancy. Can she get that stuff?
So that's what I was explaining earlier. Yeah. It's not necessarily back child support, but it is past expenses that she incurred for the child. And yes, she can petition and ask the court for that. I don't know what she meant by clothing. I'm not sure what clothing means, because the court is not going to reimburse her for her clothes. So, and the baby wasn't born at the time. I don't know if she means clothing that she needed after the baby was born, like some nursing type clothing. So not necessarily the clothing, but definitely when it comes to the medical expenses, birthing expenses, prenatal care, the court can certainly make him financially responsible for that, which for him is probably a drop in the bucket anyway. He might not even fight that.
Yeah, because how much is that going to be, right? He got $260 million, so that's clearly not anything to argue with. Petitioner Anthony owes a duty to contribute to the support, maintenance, and education of the minor child in accordance with applicable Georgia law, including temporary and permanent child support. What else?
And that's where I was saying he is acknowledging that he has a duty. He's not running from his financial obligations. He acknowledges and tells this court, I know that I have a duty to support this baby. And so I am asking you, Judge, to enter a child support order that I will have to follow. It's not a lot of fathers that willingly just come to the court to say, I know I have a financial duty. Just tell me what I need to pay and I'll pay it. Oftentimes you have fathers who are like, why do I have to pay to take care of my child? I don't want the court telling me that I need to pay to take care of my child. Why do I need to pay child support? But he's just saying, I know I have a duty to be a parent or a financial parent. So I'm here. Go ahead and just enter an order. And he even asked the court to do it on a temporary basis, because sometimes what happen, we see it all the time. These cases take forever. They take months, right? Because, motions and requests being filed back and forth. They're searching for money and income. They're doing some digging, sending subpoenas. And then based on the court schedule, it can take several months. But Anthony didn't say, when I get to a final trial, then determine child support. In that document, he said, you know what, let's not even wait till the end of the case. Let's go ahead and establish something on a temporary basis. So he's like, go ahead and put me on child support now while everything is pending. I'm ready to pay.
Yeah. And you like to say, you don't find that often. Jamaica Sweet, the baby will be a part of his estate if his name is on her birth record. That is not necessarily true in Georgia. So in Georgia, he has to be legitimized. So he did not file for legitimation in his petition. He did not ask to be made the legal parent. So if Georgia doesn't ever legitimize him, the child cannot inherit from him and vice versa. So Georgia is just a little different. It's a Bible Belt state, man. They like do it right or it ain't happening.
Now what he could do, I don't know if he would do this. What he could do is he can put the baby in his will.
Yeah, now he can do that. Yeah,
he can put the baby in his will, and then the baby can collect under the will if anything was to happen to it. Because you can put anybody in your will, right? We have people that leave money to nonprofit organizations or leave money to their neighbor or random people. So if that baby is not going to be able to inherit from him unless he files the legitimation and Georgia recognizes him as the legal father, or he puts the baby in his will. Or if unless he goes to California and handles the custody piece out there, right? Because she's still standing 10 toes down on being a California resident. So unless he goes to California and says, hey, let me file for custody, that baby unfortunately will not be a part of his estate.
No. And that's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. So Ayesha hereby seeks a temporary hearing, if necessary, and an order from the court to establish Anthony's child support obligations. She says, in the event the parties are unable to otherwise settle this matter, and Ayesha requests that the court enter an order requiring Anthony to pay her attorney's fees and other costs of litigation. And she hopes that the parties will enter into a settlement agreement, settling all issues between the parties, and the parties will be present. Will present the agreement to the court and put into a final order. So that's what she's asking, and this is just her. Wherefore, she respectfully asks the court to enter an order establishing Anthony Edwards to be the biological father and establish paternity. She's asking that she be this child's sole legal and physical custodian. She's asking that she be awarded child support for the child, for the education, upbringing, maintenance of the minor child, instanter, that's the word, instantly and on a permanent basis. That's why she's asking for this temporary hearing. She also wants to be awarded medical and birth-related expenses and have his name added to the birth certificate. So those are her asks, and this was filed March 11th, 2025. And we are just hearing all these rumors, right? That child support got granted. Anthony has already paid 216 months with his 18 years up front. And guess what, y'all? It's not true.
Right.
It's not true. Where did this come from?
And looking at, and we know it's not true because we looked at the court documents both in California and in Georgia.
Yep.
So I'm not sure where it came from. I think I saw something from maybe people.com or People Magazine where, you know, there was rumors that started from someone on Twitter or X, and then people just picked it up and ran with it.
Yeah.
And they're not sure why it started there. So this whole thing about him paying up his child support for 18 years, I don't know where that came from because there's still no court order. They still have court dates. They have court dates.
And we're going to prove April 2nd, which is just this week, which is literally 2 days ago. Ayesha filed in Fulton County asking for temporary child support and attorney's fees. She is asking the court, she talks about them being involved in this case, the one child. She says the minor child is dependent upon both parents for support. Child support should be calculated. It hasn't even been calculated, guys. She says the petitioner is a professional athlete whose annual gross income is in excess of $40 million. Wow, that is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. She says Anthony is She says, by contrast, this respondent is Ayesha, is currently unemployed and relies solely upon savings, family support, and any support that petitioner provides to maintain the needs and care of the minor child. So she lost a job in a month and a half.
Right.
Because in March 11th, she said she was employed, and now April 2nd, she's saying she unemployed. But in California, she listed music artist, brand ambassador, the songwriter, artist, a good fellow records, good record, somebody. She listed a ton of things, and here she's saying April 2nd, she's unemployed.
And she's had lawyers. Like she had a lawyer in California. She has lawyers here in Georgia.
Yes.
So where are you getting all this money to pay?
Exactly. Where is this money coming from?
Or savings, like where? So here she's trying to, and here's the thing, y'all. So in Georgia, Georgia is really what we call it like an income shares model. So child support is calculated based on both parents' income. So let's say if the more money dad makes, and if he doesn't have custody of the child, the more money he makes and the less money she makes, the more he has to pay in child support.
Yes.
But the more money that she starts to make, that child support obligation goes down because then her income is taken into consideration. Now he makes so much more money than her that it's probably not going to go down a whole lot, maybe $10, $20, $30, depending on what her income is. And that's just because he just makes, $40 million a year. So it's not going to go down much, but that's why she is putting in this pleading now that she is unemployed. She doesn't have any money. I'm living off of family savings and the little bit that I was getting because she doesn't want that child support to go down based on the income that she was making from before. Or maybe now, it depends. Now they're going to have to get into a bunch of discovery and evidence to really see what those bank accounts were looking like.
Yeah, subpoena those Social Security records. Like, when is the last time you earned some money? She cites here just some law about why he should be made to, this is about that high income deviation, saying that Anthony's income and financial resources are nearly 10,000 times that of Ayesha. The only way to ensure both parties have access to similar resources to provide for fair and effective representation for both parties in the present case is for the court to award Ayesha attorney's fees on an interim and permanent basis. So she pay for my lawyer up front as we're working this case out. So this was filed October 2nd, and there has been nothing. Also they filed a motion to seal because everybody's getting these documents from California leaking all the tea and the text messages. So they're asking the court, and it also was filed April 2nd, to seal the court file. So of course, when I saw that, I was like, let me download everything before it gets locked down, because then we won't be able to see it. But that's where it stopped, y'all. So child support hasn't even been decided. So I have no clue where this rumor birthed. There's a video on TMZ of Ayesha speaking about this rumor coming up and how it's not true. I would play it, but TMZ strikes you. I learned my lesson the first time, so I'm not going to do it, but go check that out. She talks about how this rumor just came out of nowhere, y'all. So it's a rumor, but let's get into it. If it was true, is it possible in Georgia? And is that something you ever recommend for your clients? Because what's the good, bad side of that?
Oh my gosh. So I've had clients ask me that. They'll say, I don't want to deal with her. I just want to be done. Can I just pay her all the money? They'll be calculating and adding it up and trying to figure out what the obligation is. And they're like, can I just pay her all up front and be done? So there's no restriction or no law prohibiting a parent who has to pay child support from paying it all up front, because you're responsible for paying your child support obligations. It's on you. So I never, ever, 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 ever advise child support payers to pay child support all at once up front.
Y'all hear that now?
Don't do it. Do not do it. Do not do it. And the reason I don't is because, there's a such thing that if your financial circumstances change during that 18-year period that your child is a minor and you're obligated to pay, you have a right to go back to the court and ask the court to adjust the child support to fit what you're making, and whether you're making more or less. So, in that situation, I tell people, I say, look, if you want to pay it all at once, just put all the money in an account at once and then let it auto draft to her. Yeah. Just do that. And then you still don't have to deal with her, but you know that she's being paid and it's being auto drafted. But the danger with paying everything all up front is, let's say that Anthony gets a bigger contract, right? Let's say he gets a bigger contract and, is double, what he's making. Then if he was in reality to pay all that child support up front, that doesn't stop her from coming back to say, I want to now modify child support to increase the obligation because he's making more now. And she can come back and ask the court to increase the child support based on the amount of money he's making at that time then. And she'll just give him credit for what he paid up front.
Yeah, that's it. So it's not really like, oh, this is a genius move. It saves me from ever being bothered again. No, the child support in Georgia can be modified every 2 years, right?
Right.
And if there's a big substantial change prior to that 2 years or outside of like a 2-year window, then you can still come back, right? So if he drafted to the Lakers and get a $500 million contract, Ayesha coming back for some more money.
Right. And let's say, because right now the child's a baby, right? Yeah. And, let's say, and it seems like she's at home with the child, maybe. She's saying she's not working, so I'm assuming the child is not in daycare yet. But at some point, kids get older, they have more expenses, they get involved in extracurricular activities. What if she, gets involved in some sort of like gymnastics or ballet? What if she wants her daughter to go to private school? Well, here's the thing. If he pays the child support all up front, and at the time that he was paying the child support, those expenses did not exist. So child support was only calculated based on that current situation of the baby being a baby, and he's paid it all up front. She can still modify and say, look, my daughter's situation or circumstances have changed as well. Even if he doesn't make more money, right? Let's say he's still making the same amount of money. She can still file and ask the court, like, look, all of these expenses were not taken into consideration because she was a baby. Where now she's older, we have, extracurricular activities, we have, dental expenses, all these expenses that didn't exist. That does not alleviate him from contributing to that just because he paid his child support up front. So that's a situation as well. And then the flip side, the flip side is, what if he's no longer working in the NBA, right? And what if he's out there, with a regular job, let's say making $70,000 a year? Is he then kicking himself like, dang it, getting all this money when really, I'm not playing in the NBA 10 years later anymore. So the remaining 8 years, I could have been paying her a child support calculated off of $70,000 a year as opposed to the multi-millions that I was making back then. You know, so he kind of shortchanges himself too when it comes to that. So I don't ever recommend that. That should not happen. I don't know if that was just a rumor to make the situation go viral. You know, if so, they did a good job of that. But you know, I just don't think it's smart to advise any person to pay their child support up front like that.
Not at all. Danny B says, can an agreement be signed to where she can't ask for more money?
That's a good point, because at the end of the day, when it comes to agreements, the judge still has to approve it and sign off on it. The judge literally has to be able to look at the agreement, because remember, y'all, the judge is going to do what's in the best interest of the child. And so oftentimes in Georgia, you know, the law says in Georgia that parents can't waive child support. They can't sign an agreement and say, hey, you know, there's going to be no child support, because the money is for, I know we've been talking about Ayesha and Anthony quite a bit, but at the end of the day, that child support money is for the child. It's not for Ayesha, even though she gets it because she is the, you know, caregiver of the child. It's not for her. It doesn't belong to him. It belongs to this child. So when there's an agreement in place, the judge has to approve it. There's some law out there that does not allow a judge to, or excuse me, parties to waive the right for one party to file a modification, because again, we're talking about what's in this child's best interest. So for two parents to try to come to an agreement to say, you're going to agree that for 3 years or 4 years, you're not going to ask the court to modify or change the child support. I want you to sign off on that. Well, that's not their decision to make. That belongs to the child. Now they can agree to the amount of child support, and as long as it's sufficient, the judge will sign off on it. But some judges won't sign off on certain amounts if they don't think it's enough. So they can agree to the amount, but they can't just agree to waive baby girl's rights. Like baby girl has a right, and that's why the judge is there, to make sure that baby girl's voice is heard through the judge's decision and determining what's in her best interest.
Yes. Gamer Logic says, can he go to the court and ask for some of it back like she can with him if for some reason in 5 years he's no longer in the NBA? I've paid her $1.2 million up front. I'm broke now. I need some of my money back. Can I get it back?
So people can file an ask for anything, right? The question is, will a judge grant such a request? So again, we're looking at what's in the child's best interest. Is it really in the child's best interest to pay daddy back money he gave to mom to take care of the child? Is that really in the child's best interest? I don't see a legal basis to request that. I don't know of a legal basis to request for a refund or money back, except the situation that I mentioned before with, you know, where dad found out that he wasn't the biological father. But if that's not the situation, I don't see where there would be a legal basis for him to ask for money back. That's just, that would not be beneficial to the minor child.
Now, is there any way where that upfront money could be considered not all child support? Like, well, some of that's a gift, so you still owe her. Like, is it a way to designate, no, this is child support. I'm not giving any gift. All of this needs to count for each month of the 18 years.
He would need to designate it as that to avoid her saying it's a gift. He didn't really pay it. So y'all, what usually happens, well, not what usually happens, but what sometimes happens is, let's say there's a court order in place for child support, and the court order says that the money is going to be automatically garnished from their paychecks, right? And so if the money is automatically coming out of the paycheck, but then, and let's just use dad in this situation, but then dad turns around and Zales mom $100 or $200, or he turns around and just gives her some cash, you know, but the court order says it needs to be garnished from his paycheck. Well, that cash that he's given her, he's not going to get credit for that. And what she can do is she can go to the court and say, oh, he's behind on his child support, and, you know, the money he gave me in cash, it doesn't count. So I want him to be arrested and incarcerated until he pays me this money. And he's looking like, girl, you know, I paid you that money via Zelle, and you know that was for child support. And she's probably like, that wasn't for child support. That was just so go to the movies, you know, or so we could go to Disney World, and so I could buy them some gifts at Disney World. So yeah, in those instances, if he does not pay that child support the way the judge says it needs to be paid, it's considered a gift.
Yes.
It is considered a gift. He does not get credit for it. He's going to have to pay again.
Gotta pay it again. So if you send in a Zelle, you better put child support in the memo so that, you know, in case you got to go to court and argue about it. So they won't be trying to say, no, this was a gift. Well, man, we have covered so much information. Shout out. Thank you.
Now we're going to have to keep following this case. I feel like I wasn't following it before, but now I feel like I have an interest. You know, I'm vested in this. I saw that. So they did file a motion to seal the case. That was Anthony's legal team that filed a motion to seal the case. I don't know if the judge will do that. You know, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I'm just thinking about all the mess that's already out there from the California court. You know, like, why didn't they file a motion? Well, I don't know if they did because I didn't go through the court docket, but I'm like, why didn't you file a motion to seal all that juicy stuff we just saw that was filed in the California court? But they did file that request, and there's court on April 9th. So what's that? Next Wednesday, Tuesday?
Yeah, next Wednesday. Now, is this a court like everybody can go to, or is this one of those like status conferences they do in Fulton?
No, it's literally, it said Rule Nasa. So that's just a fancy word, y'all, to say we're going to have a court hearing. It's April 9th at 3 p.m. And I believe it's in person. I believe it's in person. If I looked at the notice correctly. Yeah, it was.
This is going to be interesting, y'all. So we're going to have to come back next week and figure out what happens, because this hearing is going to be for the temporary child support. So no,
it's going to be for the motion to seal.
Oh, motion to seal. Oh, okay.
Now, there is another court date on May 5th. So May 5th, that's a status conference. They call it here in Georgia a 60-day status conference. That's at 10 a.m. on May 5th. Now, May 5th, though, the judge at that May 5th court date can establish temporary child support on May 5th. So that may be, and they're both asking for the same thing. I don't know why mom bothered filing a motion for temporary child support, because dad already said it in his petition. He said, let's go ahead and establish temporary child support. So we got 2 court dates coming up. Now I'm vested. I will be following it, and you know, we might have to do a follow-up to see what happens.
Yeah, we gotta do a follow-up.
Assuming the judge doesn't seal it.
Yes, I know, right? Because if she seals it, then I'm gonna have to do some things to get the paperwork in. We're gonna try if we can still see if we can get access to it, y'all. Because you know, I know some people down there at Fulton, but we're gonna see. So our poll has been up the entire time. Where do you stand? She's getting what she deserves. Y'all say 72% of y'all like she get what she deserves. Like, nobody's feeling bad for Ayesha. And 28% was he wrong for that. So, you know, still a few people out there feeling like he's wrong for kind of this. And I think you can kind of be on both sides, right? You can feel like Ayesha's getting what she deserves. She was told up front that this man didn't want to be involved. And he actually filed first in Georgia. And she also knew how he was, because December, a month before she gets pregnant, he has a scandal with Paige Jordan. So that all comes out, the 100K, the ask for an abortion. And so I guess maybe she thought she was going to be special. She thought things were going to be different, and they weren't. As soon as she sends her text, she gets the same have an abortion text back from Mr. Edwards. So, you know, I kind of get why she's going so hard in her court filings and how she feels emotional about it. But at the same time, you know, he kind of told you what time it was. You knew before you got pregnant what type of man you were dealing with. So it's on you, boo.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's just so unfortunate, because I don't really see it as her getting what she deserves. Because remember, this whole situation is, we got a little child involved, you know. So when people say she's getting what she deserves, that sounds like they're saying, well, that's what happens with your child. You know, at the end of the day, it's only the child that suffers, you know, on both ends, when you have 2 people who can't come together and at least co-parent. So I don't know that it's really her getting what she deserves, so to speak. It's really just the child losing out, and that's so unfortunate.
And I really hope Anthony comes around and it one day becomes a father in his child's life. So we got enough about them. All right. So before I let you go, okay, because I dropped at the beginning that this was celebrity family attorney, and she had some celebrity clients, right? Offset and Cardi, you know, I know they got a case going on. Simon, Got a case with Portia. Is there any tea, like a little blurb, a little drip of tea?
So yeah. What I will say is just don't believe everything in the media, because you can't. The headlines, a lot of the headlines are clickbait. You can't believe everything in the media, because a lot of this is ongoing litigation. I can't get into any of that, and then I like to respect my clients' privacy. But maybe one day I'll be back.
Yes, okay, we're gonna have her back on the show. So
shed some light on some things.
Huh?
Yeah, we can shed some light on some things.
Yes.
I may be back, but when there's ongoing litigation, I just don't like to get into those things because again, people react off of emotions. The public reacts off of little clips here and there. So we'll just have to wait and see and stay tuned.
Yes. Chelsea Lynn NC says y'all did an amazing job tonight. Wasn't this amazing? Shanika Young says great live tonight as always. Thank y'all so much.
Did we really just go 2 hours?
Okay. Yes, we did go 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like when you start getting into this stuff, it gets so fun and time is flying by. So I got to get Onyema Farrey off of here so she can get to the family because I didn't held her up. But before we get out of here, tell everybody about your practice, who you are again, so they can find you if they need you.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I am a family law attorney. I handle divorces, custody, child support for both moms and dads. But I've carved out a niche to really go hard for fathers. And so we are located in Atlanta, Georgia. We practice all over the state of Georgia. As far as where you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Attorney Farrey. So just like my name on the screen is at Attorney Farrey. Also, I am on Facebook. The firm is Anene Farrey and Associates. You can find me on Facebook. If you just Google my name, I'll pop up all over the place. I am also I'm on YouTube, but my YouTube a little dry. So
We're gonna get Attorney Farrey's YouTube channel. So one of the mods just dropped. Thank you for always, forever, for life. Just dropped her YouTube channel in the chat. I have pinned it to the messages. I want everybody. We got 63 people in here, so I want all 63 to run over to her channel and hit subscribe. Turn your notifications on because sis got a lot of knowledge and tea. So we're gonna get her on YouTube so she can keep us educated and spill it. Cause we just gotta know. We gotta know. I see Cardi B that moved on. I already know Offset over there in his feelings. So I can't wait to get her back to talk about that. So definitely, yes, somebody said that IG pic fair. Yes, okay. Once she killing them, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, all right, I'm proud of my IG picture. Yes, I just got it done not too long ago, about a couple of weeks ago. So I'm proud of my picture.
Yes, she just had that photo shoot. Yes. So all right, her channel is pinned in the chat. So go hit it. Go hit that subscribe button. Come back and tell me you subscribe so we can run it up. So we can get her on YouTube to drop this knowledge and tea. And we are going to have her back. That's objection 403 says, girl, you two need to be every other week co-host. Oh, okay. We did have a great time.
I told you this is my first live that I've ever done. And, thank you so much for having me because I'm always like, who am I? Like, how can I go live? Because it's always weird kind of talking to, a screen. You feel like you're talking to yourself. And then, believe it or not, people always tell me, I don't believe you, but I'm camera shy. Like I'm really camera shy. I'm video shy. I like to pick things apart. And so this was great. This was a great live. You made me feel comfortable. So shout out to you. And you're a natural. You just started this channel like what? Less than a year ago?
Days. Like thanks to the lead attorney, he gave me that TLA effect October 28th. And so I used to be terrified though. So I totally get it. I used to be so scared to hit this button. So scared to get on here now. It's like I got the studio set up at home. It's a little more comfortable. So yes. And well, girl, the people are loving you. You got all the knowledge. So look, don't hesitate. For always, forever, for life says yes, all your knowledge is needed, Attorney Farrey. So
thank you.
And get on YouTube. Nene says, shout out TLA. Yes, shout out to my YouTube mentor, TLA. Chelsea Lynn says you did an amazing job, Fairy. You got your foot in the water. You are natural as well. I'm telling her. So this is my sorority sister too. So, we got to shout out the crest. So we are Deltas. You know it. We pledge at the University of Georgia.
The same school that Anthony went to.
Yes. Okay. That's why I was like, he out here tripping in my alma mater, got us out here looking crazy, right? So yes, we are both Bulldogs. So shout out to all the Deltas in the chat. And thank you so much, Onyema Farrey, for coming on. Again, you all can find her in Atlanta. She handles all family cases. So that's divorce, child support, paternity, whether you're a celebrity or not, she can handle your case. As you stated, she's carved out a niche for guys. If you follow her on social media, you'll see a lot of stories from regular men that talk about how she's fought and allowed them to be able to see their kids when mom kept them out of their life. Sometimes, and quite often, she even gets dad's full custody. Like,
let me tell you, more likely than not, I get dad's full custody of their children, even in a situation where it's a legitimation and it's just, they've never been married.
Mm-hmm.
I literally get dad's full custody. And that's what I was doing over on my YouTube, was just sharing some of my experiences, some results, just to encourage fathers. Because like I said, the court system has traditionally been against dads. It really has. Or sometimes they're just intimidated. They get the short end of the stick. And I just empower them. And I'm like, look, if you really want custody, you really want some parenting time, call me, because I got you. I got you.
Like Chelsea Lynn NC says, moms fear Fairy in the courtroom. Okay, because she will hold their feet to the fire and she's going to get dad justice. So definitely look her up if you need anything. And although we are both two amazing attorneys in Atlanta, Georgia, we are not your attorneys. We have just been providing legal commentary. So don't get it twisted. Okay. So, but both of us have firms. I specialize in criminal defense and personal injury. Attorney Farrey specializes in family law. So if you need attorneys in Atlanta, look us both up. We thank you all for being here tonight with us. We got K Smith gifted 5 Fit Lawyer ATL memberships. Shout out for the support. Thank K Smith if you got one of those memberships. We had over like 70 some people in the chat at one time talking about this. We were also streaming on Facebook and IG at the same time, okay? Because this was just a topic that everyone was talking about. So whatever platform you were on, I hope you had an amazing time with us tonight. Again, y'all put Attorney Farrey in the damn chat. Thank her for coming by the Fit Lawyer ATL's channel and hanging out with us for almost 2.5 hours. I know that bill, the invoice gonna be high. So y'all make sure y'all put Attorney Farrey in the chat. It was so great hanging out with you all tonight. I got some updates coming. Diddy has a superseding indictment. So tune in next week. We're going to be talking about that on the channel. And we're going to stay tuned to this Anthony Edwards story and figure out how much this child support actually turns out to be. So it was great being here with you all tonight. And I'll see you in court.
Yes.